Guys, once again, we are here to do the Storm Kindred review of these cards. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it, shall we? Oh, there it is. Oh, gotta love this fancy Kindred layout, all this new Lightseeker stuff. It's really nothing new. It's the same layout I've had for the entire time. But hey, welcome to the Razor Greshu stream. We are on to Storm today. We have one more past this into tech. I will be putting up an unaligned review video on its own on my YouTube channel, so if you're not already a subscriber to my YouTube channel, the link is below. Go ahead and check out the videos there. I posted them all, usually like a few hours after I put up the review videos here. So if you haven't seen them yet, go check them out. See what you think. Comment below, give a like or whatnot. Try and get that channel growing too, so I can actually change the name to something that's not like the fax machine going. That'll be nice. Delzo01, awesome. Already starting the chat off. Love it. Gotta appreciate it. All right. Now, once again, I'll give my disclaimer here. These reviews are simply my opinions on the cards. I will give the review based on the card just as a base card, what it does, if I believe it's going to be functional, what's good about it, what I don't like about it, how I think it might affect the new meta as the game continues into Kindred when the app finally comes out this coming week. How it will affect the decks that have already been perfected and made into tournament decks, if it's going to have a place in any of those, or if it's going to just be a new card or just a solid card. My rating is a 1 through 5 star system, some points, 5s here and there to just kind of evaluate, just minor increases, minor decreases. But essentially, yeah, I mean, this is just, it's all my opinion on the cards, so take it or leave it. Please discuss with me why you think I'm wrong or I'm right. I would love to tell you that I'm right, but I'm most likely going to be wrong. So, I mean, without further ado, let's get into Storm, shall we? Storm has a lot of fun mechanics. I've looked into it. It runs beasts. It runs a lot of elementals. It's all very combo-oriented is what Storm has been in the past, and I believe that's what they're going to continue to do now is they want to lay their combos. They want to get benefits from laying their combos. So what I want to do with this Storm is, in my mind, it's like, oh, let's build a really fun heavy combo deck, and that would be a lot of fun. So I started doing that. I have looked at the Storm cards as a whole a little bit before this review, so I can give a better review of the cards as we go into it. So I hope that makes me a little more knowledgeable, a little more understandable on some of these cards as I'm reading them to you and as we're discussing this for the first time online. Without further ado, that's my kind of spoiler-free seance, whatever you want to, words. It's my words. Let's go into the stream. If I can. 1 second here. Here we go. All right, the first one we have here, guys, is... That's not right. That's typed in wrong. Let's just go into it. Raging River. I unalphabetized these because I typed it as Aging River. That's not an R. That's an A. All right. Well, let's just start off with this. We have Raging River. So it's 1/1/1. All the corners rotate. Water, location buff. Other heroes cannot draw more than rotation cards per turn. Draw one card if this expires. Now, this card I love. I think this is a great, just solid card. Being a location obviously makes it fit into the location cards. Could give you some benefits to that. But literally, it's for 3 turns, unless your opponent removes this buff, it limits their draws. It means that if cards would say draw 2 or draw 3, they only draw 1. No matter what, even if they waste 2 actions, they still only draw 1. For the next 3 turns, sorry, I'm a little bubbly. If for the next 2 turns, your opponent is basically going at half speed. The best thing they can do is lay a card, draw a card, lay a card, draw a card, if they still want to keep their hand at a sizable amount. Depending on what decks you're playing, putting 1 or 2 of these in a deck could be really good. Especially if you put it down when your opponent like just has a really good turn, they lay a lot of cards, their hand is empty, you lay this down afterwards, and then they're like, well, I have no cards to lay, and no abilities really to activate, so I'll just draw 1. For the next 3 turns, really slows them down in a perfect spot. This is a detrimental card to a lot of people. It is a water buff. I know, just looking at the Storm cards lately, a lot of them say like, hey, if you have so many water buffs in play, or like do stuff like that. I know Little Blammo was one where if you had 3 water buffs in play, your explosive cards dealt more damage or something like that. So making this a water buff, which is a very good played water buff, you're going to see probably this card a lot. I'm going to give this a 4-star card. It's not 5-star. It doesn't reach that ground meta breaking thing. It's not a card that you absolutely need in a certain archetype, but it's one of those cards that you're going to see a lot of. You're going to want to include it in a lot of your Storm decks, especially ones that are more like if the game does go on to a more control-y or tempo damage based stuff where it's not against complete aggro, and even in against complete aggro, a lot of them are running like Dolo is now 3 damage to draw for 1. Tempest is put 1 card under it to draw for 1. It's not, they don't get a major hand advantage on you because you're slowing down their draws, which could be detrimental. So yeah, this card is, I can almost see it being run in almost all blue decks, or if you just splash water in, I think this is a good one to just splash into another deck to really slow down and affect your opponent in a more defensive way. And you also get to draw a card if it expires. So like after 3 turns, it's a card draw, which is awesome. I mean, good for you. Your opponent can remove it and whatever. But no, it's an all-around good card, a lot of benefits from it, no real downside for wanting to have it in your deck. No, exactly. Anti-Dolo. The White Wolf, hey, I just started like 5 minutes ago, so we're all good. We're all good. Kindred Marathon. Woo! Kindred Marathon! Do it, man. Do it. Watch all my videos. I'm going to have them up in order. It's going to be great. Spend your whole 10 hours watching or 12 or 13 or whatever, because they're about 2-hour videos. So go ahead, man. YouTube it up. All right. Now we're actually going to go in alphabetical order here. We have Angered Shockfin. No, yeah. So White Wolf, what happened is when I typed them into the thing and alphabetized them, I typed it as Aging River, and it started with an A, so it put it right to the top. So sorry for the confusion there, but yeah, that's why Raging River was so far up, and I was like, wait, that does not start with an A. That's not alphabetical order. I looked, everything else should be fine, but yeah, that one was a bit flubbed up there, so I do apologize on that, but we are going back in alphabetical order. Just that one is the first one for no apparent reason other than I don't know how to use a keyboard properly. Hey! All right, on to the review. Angered Shockfin. It's a consistent buff, lightning, beast. Awesome. This is the first beast card we've seen from Storm, so I'm really loving their beast aspect. Continuous buff, mind you. Deal 2 damage to your target when one of their buffs expires. Now, that's a really fun card. It's one of the more continuous cards that is more based on your opponent's buffs. Now, we've seen cards, I think like Shockfin or... they're not Shockfin. This is Shockfin. Duh. There's a card where it's like if your opponent has more than 4 buffs, continuously do damage, or 2 damage to them. If you have no buffs and this is your only buff, there's one that deals 2 damage to them as a continuous turn. This is more just like a general census. It's like, hey, if you're going to lay a lot of buffs, if you're going to have them expire and all that stuff, it's going to deal 2 damage every time one of their buffs expires. Just having this continuously out, it makes your opponent almost go, wow, maybe I shouldn't play like a whole lot of buffs, or maybe I shouldn't try and time all my buffs so they all expire at once, because that's just going to be a lot of damage taken over time. It's a fun card. It's not one where you obviously necessarily need it. It's a continuous buff. It's not even water. If it was water, it would fit into more in that archetype that I was talking about prior to this. But I mean, it's a beast buff. It's lightning. So maybe depending on what the lightning is weapon when we come to it, it's one of those that you want to splash into a different colored beast deck. Maybe a green one that can search for that weapon to lay that weapon and then play this Angered Shockfin if it's a really weird deck if you're only putting this card in. I don't know. I don't see this probably being played more of than like a 1. I mean, yes, it does double up. Exactly, McCrizzle. If you're playing against nature, they're restarting the buffs. Obviously, it won't expire. So you have to find a way to make their buffs expire, or just hopefully they expire. It's a very temperamental card. That's why I'm only saying one of it. It's not going to be a real big game changer where you're like, yeah, I have like 3 out. What are you going to do? And they're like, well, I don't care. I only run like 5 buffs in this deck, so it's maybe 10 damage from these cards, and if they're a bother, I'll remove them. So, yeah, I mean, you can put your damage prevention down as your buffs are about to expire. It's something that it's like, meh. You splash this in Astral and lay it right before you Gravity Bubble. Super. Oh my God! Can you imagine that? Can you imagine splashing lightning into a beast deck in Astral and putting this out, and then you Gravity Bubble and make all their buffs rotate? That would be so much fun. All right, that's something I got to try, White Wolf. That's something I got to try when this finally comes out in the app. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna give this like, I don't know, 2-star, 2.5 maybe, somewhere around that range. Where it's not a card you have to include. It's a fun card, but it's nothing that is really going to improve a certain deck. It's meme deck of the day, exactly. Oh, I cannot wait for those meme decks. I'm gonna have like once a week. I swear to God, I am. But yeah, I mean, it's a fun card that you can experiment with. It's a fun card to just throw in here and there if you're looking for a spot or if you just want a continuous beast buff. But otherwise, it's nothing that impressive compared to what Storm can do with its more explosive cards. It's just a more annoyance buff, so it's like a 2.5 rating for me. Grimjow, hey Razor, or hey Grimjow, what's up? Mick Rizzle, I mean, come on, when meme stuff like that happens to you, you gotta just kind of throw your head back and go, like, it's you want to play that deck and see if you can do it too. That's the kind of thing that I love making about this. All right, next buff, Bubble Gnasher. We have a beast. Water buff. Okay, maybe this fits more into that. Unique burn. Remove your target's rightmost buff from their perspective when you play a combo. Interesting. Now this goes in a lot of what Storm actually really likes to do, and that's their continuous water buffs. So you have a lot of water buffs in play for those cards that deal, want to have water buffs in play. It's continuous, so it's not going to go anywhere. It also runs on the mechanic that Storm really likes to play their combos. It really likes to just be that nuisance thing. The fact, obviously, you can't have more than 2 out or it won't do anything. You can't bring this one back because it does look really potent. And the fact that this card is buff removal, it pretty much adds to all your combos. Hey, remove your opponent's rightmost buff, which it adds basically 5 more buffs. There is Bubble Spirit, I believe, is for Storm as well. That has a defend ability where you can manipulate your opponent's buffs so that their last one doesn't rotate. So, like, with that card and this one, you can manipulate your opponent's buffs on the board, and if they don't lay any the next turn, you can lay a combo and remove specific buffs with this kind of synergy with it. So that would be pretty interesting to try out. That'd be something where the 2 cards, obviously they're both water, so you can even splash them into a deck if you really want to. That would be something really fun to try out if your opponent isn't like a buff deck and just laying a bunch of them for you. So it helps you select which buff to remove. Otherwise, a lot of times just removing a buff is good. I mean, they have Thunder Slug, it can remove 1, then 2. Past that, they're like, well, I'll play around Thunder Slug, and then you're like, okay, well, I have Bubble Nasher, so play around my combos. Their combos, I want to play them anyway because they have really good combo synergies, and just being able to remove a buff is fine. I think I'm going to give this a 3-star card. It's right around average. It's a solid card for what it does, especially in blue where you do play a lot of combos really efficiently. It's a beast card, so depending on what beast does for Storm, my guess is just really aggression stuff. Maybe beast leans more into the Storm stuff in this set. I don't know. I haven't looked too much into the beast yet for Storm. But yeah, I mean, just a consistent water buff that is part of a family that just makes your combos better. There are a lot of buffs out there for Storm right now that have a lot of really good benefits for just playing your combos. There is I think the wind element one, maybe it's the lightning element one, just increases the damage and healing of it by 2. There is the Zapper Bug, which is, no, it's the lightning, the air one does that. The lightning one deals 2 extra damage, then you get to put cards from your discard pile back in your deck. There's stuff like that where, like, playing these buffs, like having just one of in a deck, it's completely fine. It's another nuisance card that makes your combos better, that your opponent is just like, man, he's starting to play a lot more combos, I really should think about removing these buffs before I get just overwhelmed by all this really, really synergistic style. So I like this card. I think it's a 3. It's nothing that overpowers the deck, but it is something when your opponent sees it goes, that thing's going to really hurt me if I let it just sit there. So that's what I think it is. I think it's a 3-star card. I think it's a little better than the Shock Fin, because the Shock Fin depends on your opponent, as opposed to this one strictly like you get to control when it goes off, when it does stuff like that. So that's why I'm giving a little bit more playability. All right, Cyclone Tamer. 4 corners, 1 clunky corner on each of them for wind buff. Unique, so you can't have more than 1 in play or does nothing. Rotation of your other action buffs 1 step backward when you play a combo. Now, this is really interesting. We obviously this is more, once again, when you lay a combo, it does something. For 4 corners, that means you get benefit from 4 combos. Now, depending on what kind of deck you're building, you only really have 5 combos, and if your deck is very aggressive, you should be winning by the time you lay your 3rd combo. So, like, it's not meant for a very aggressive style deck. Rotating your stuff backwards means you really want to get synergy out of it. You want to get a lot of momentum out of a lot of these cards. So there might be some really good buffs that just have really good last corner that you want to rotate back 1 and get another benefit from it or something like that. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into all of them, but back before that, there weren't a lot of buffs outside of, like, maybe Thunder Slug for some reason. If you're Thunder Slugging a lot of buffs on the board where 3 can't be enough. That was like one of the only combos when you laid Storm Shaman. You could lay this and Storm Shaman and then rotate Storm Shaman back after you lay a combo to get a benefit from the next turn. That would be a simple, fun aggression play. But, I mean, I don't see this being played in a very aggressive deck. Unfortunately, I think 4 corners leads me to believe that it is more of a tempo-based. But, yeah, I mean, depending on what kind of deck you're playing, 4 corners for combos means that you're very rarely going to get to all 4 corners of this. So I would look at it as maybe like you get to rotate back 2 buffs, and by then, depending on the deck you're playing, you should hopefully be winning by dealing that much damage with all the aggressive Storm stuff that it has to just deal damage. But yeah, that's I'm going to give it a 2. I'm going to give it a 2 just because it solely relies on your combos. So obviously, you won't get a full effect from this when you lay action cards like that. Depending on the new buffs you have out there, a lot of them for water the good ones have been continuous. I haven't seen a whole lot that other than like Raging River that you want to rotate and get a big effect from a certain corner a whole lot. So I mean, it's one of those that like I really probably don't see this card being played a whole lot unless you have really good action buffs that you want to get rotated back, and by then those buffs that you really want, your opponent is probably going to focus on removing those ones over the other ones that are just minor. So it's something that I just don't see being played a whole lot, unfortunately. It's a really cool aspect, but like I said, the four corner makes me believe that it's not going to be used in a whole lot of these decks that are very aggressive style, because you only want to lay it for like one or two corners, and then what are the other ones for? And it's not even part of a family, so you can't do family synergies with it. So I'm going to give it a 2-star. Deluge Drifter. I don't know how you pronounce that word. It's a water buff elemental, awesome, part of an elemental family. We're starting to see those now too. 4 non-dormant corners. Other heroes cannot play location cards. If this buff expires, draw 1 card. Now this is very interesting. Obviously, I found out yesterday that like cards like Old Oak are actually location cards. There are location cards that are not buffs. There's actually some just normal action cards that are attack or defend that are location cards, which is really interesting. Depending on how the presence of these locations are all spread out throughout the families, I could see maybe you running one of these cards in a main deck. They should have named this FU Granite. I mean, it does seem like that. Yeah, it does seem like this one specifically just makes Mountain. It's a Mountain hate card. It's one of those where the alignment for Mountain is just you're not going to do anything for the next 4 turns, because a lot of their stuff that I've been seeing is location. And obviously they got to remove it if they want to start doing anything with their cards. Otherwise, they're just going to be drawing one. So like, if you laid this card with the accidental one that I really like Raging River, if you lay those in both 1 turn, you shut down Mountain so hard. You make it so they can only draw 1 card a turn, and if they're playing a location heavy deck, which is one of their probably stronger metas of this new Kindred set, you're going to make them almost do nothing. And then when both of them expire, you get to draw a card off of each buff, which I think is just a really nice added bonus to these ones, where it really makes your opponent want to go, man, I mean, it's almost doing nothing, like it's kind of hindering me a little bit, but removing it means he won't be drawing a card, which means he won't be getting that advantage, so maybe I want to remove this, maybe not. It's just the added bonus makes your opponent really think, like, maybe it's worth removing just for the card draw type of thing. I see this being, in my opinion, this is more of a sideboard card until you start seeing a lot of location cards spread throughout the alignments. It really does just seem like it's a certain color hate card, which leads me to believe it's more of a sideboard card. But that color, it beats it with a spade into the grave. It says, no, you ain't doing anything. I'm going to rush you down before you can lay your Mountain Forts, before you can lay your Enchanted Soils, Rickety Mines, all this stuff. You ain't doing nothing for 4 turns when you really wanted to remove other buffs that I was doing. So I'm going to give this a 3.5. Probably won't see main deck unless, like I said, we're encountering a lot more location cards spread throughout the colors. That this counteracts those really good location cards. It is just more of a sideboard card, but it is a very efficient sideboard card for a specific color. And Mountain has always been one of these stronger orders to play against. So having a card that really shuts down or poops on the top alignment is just, it's going to be a good card, in my opinion. So, and it's, like I said, it's elemental, so it fits that family niche that I really like. So I'm going to give it like 3.5. Where it is going to see play, but probably not outside of a sideboard until the game starts settling down a little more. Drenching Droplet. All right, we got a defend card, water for elemental. I'm loving the elementals. I love this whole aspect of it. So we have 2 healing. Select another hero, deal 2 damage to that hero, and remove one of their machine buffs. Okay, now from what I understand, machine is almost strictly limited to the tech orient. I don't know how many other machines are outside of tech. I think there's like 1 in Mountain. And I want to just look this up real quick, just to see how many machine cards there are to get a better evaluation of this. So there's one in Mountain. There is there's only 5, and 2 of them are unaligned. Or no, there's only no, I was just looking straight in Kindred. Yeah, 2 of them are Astral, 1 of them is Mountain, and 1 of them is Storm, 1 of them is unaligned. And like the ones that are not out there that have been seeing play are Mateship. Prism Cannon hasn't been seeing a whole lot of play, and depending on this new one for Storm that we're going to come up to in a little bit, depending on what it does really, I really don't even see this being a sideboard card. I mean, yeah, Prism Cannon, it might come back if you're playing a lot more of the Crystal style where you rotate your buffs forward, stuff like that. Maybe Prism Cannon starts making a better appearance. But it's just 2 healing, 2 damage. It's minuscule. As far as I'm aware, Storm doesn't get a whole lot of power increases, so you can't get a double benefit from it. I mean, it's just not a good card. And I mean, from what I'm understanding, like I haven't gone to the tech, that's tomorrow, so I don't know a whole lot of the machine cards. I feel like Machine, just like the other families, is going to be a more family-oriented deck. And in that case, Thunderslug is going to remove 3 buffs. Or they're going to remove 2 of their own with their Crazed Bomber because it's in tech. So I'm just going to give this a 1-star card. It provides minuscule damage, minuscule healing. It's one of those where the nature card from yesterday removed an Undead buff, and Undead is just... They have a lot of cyclical stuff to bring back, so why would you bother removing one of those buffs? So, I mean, like, you have better buff removal. This is very, very specific buff removal that I just don't think this card is ever going to see play, even in sideboards. Storm is very more an aggressive style or just more efficient healing and damage that removing a very specific family-oriented buff is just not worth it, not even worth putting in there. Yeah, I don't think it's going to see play. It's a 1-star card. Maybe Draft will run it just for a water card. I don't know. We'll see. Dust King. We have an Elemental Air attack card. 3 damage. If this card is used to pay for a combo, keep it in your hand. I really like this card. I think this card it's a 4-star card in my opinion. Because it does almost the same thing if you're trying to compare it to Dust Fiend, which is 4 damage. If it's used to pay for a combo, it can pay for any element, but then that should get shuffled back in your deck. So, like, if you're playing a very combo-oriented Storm deck, which, you know, some people might do because Storm is very heavy on the combo stuff. Running both of those would be great because Dust King will always stay in your hand to pay for those wind elements, and Dust Fiend will pay for anything that's not wind. So, like, having those be your main wind stuff, which wind, I believe, is more of their support tech anyway, because it also runs Thunderslug and stuff like that, that just having, like, 1 or 2 of these in a deck to just consistently keep in your hand for wind payment for combos, and then have Dust Fiend just keep being everything else that you've been pitching, like water for healing, lightning for damage, it's really good synergy. You're not going to probably want to replace one or the other because I feel like both of them hold their own niche. And even if you do something like this where, like, Dust King, you pay for a combo with this card stays in your hand, and maybe your opponent is, like, down to minuscule amounts of damage, and then you can 3 damage for Dust King. Like, it stays in your hand to be an attack for the next turn, which is just really good. I mean, 3 damage is a perfect attack line slot for it. It doesn't need to be 4 to be overpowered. I'm going to give this a 4-star card because I really think this card does what Dust Fiend does, but in a very different way, where neither one really replaces another. You can actually run both in the deck and still feel pretty fine about it. That's how I'm seeing this card. That's how I'm going to see it being played out. I think it's just a solid card. For the way Storm has been going in the past, how I feel it's going to be going in the future. It's a good card. You're gonna be seeing Dust King in a lot of Storm decks, even if they don't run a lot of combos. Wind is very limited to its attacks, other than, like, Dust Fiend that you've been seeing. It has, like, Living Cloud, and that's about it. So all your other damage is going to come from lightning. So if you're not even lightning superior, you have to find ways to lay other elements attacks. And having a wind and lightning attack outside of Dust Fiend is it's very more aggressive, which is what Storm has been known to do. So I really like it. Fearless Diver. Okay, we have 3 X's and then a 5. Water Creeble. Okay, Creeble. I like the family Creeble. We'll see what it does. I don't think it's really developed out, kind of like the Umbron isn't. But Creeble, we have Fearless Diver. Damage to your target. Increase this by 5 if you have 4 or more water buffs in play. Interesting. Now, you see, this is one of those where I was talking about before, where they're trying to, like, do a new thing with Storm this time around, where you want just a bunch of water buffs in play to get some really fun impact value. So a lot of your water buffs, obviously this is a water buff in itself, so this is going to count towards it, because it doesn't say if you have, what's the word I'm thinking of, 4 other water buffs in play. So this is one of the 4. So you really only need 3 other water buffs in play. I feel like the old card that wasn't seen a whole lot, I believe it's Guard Snail, which is a water buff for 4 corners, heals you for 9. That's going to start seeing a lot of recursion, a lot of play in these new type of water decks. So with Fearless Diver, you lay that first, then you start laying other water buffs before. And with Bubble Nasher, that's a consistent water buff. You have other things that are consistent buffs for water. That I think this is actually a decent card for that archetype. I'm going to give this a 3-star. I think with things like Fearless Diver, if you can make it hit for 10, then you'll probably see more Cyclone Tamer. Cyclone Tamer might be in one of these archetypes where like more water buffs in play, you get to do a lot of fun damage. So I'm gonna give this, I don't know, a 3. I'm gonna give it a 3. Being a stat 5 line for 4 obviously is not that good. Possibility to increase it to 10 is really good. The other one that I'm kind of comparing it to is that one, I think it was Wind, I think it was like Stormcrow, where if your opponent had no buffs in play, when this rotated to its final corner, it did 10. So that one was a lot more difficult to pull off because you had to like Thunder Slug in time with the Stormcrow to make sure that it actually did 10. Otherwise, the card was never really run. So that one, it didn't even fit an archetype for a deck tile. That one was never seen. This one at least tries to fit into this new archetype that they're going for. I feel like with you, if you're building a deck around just a lot of water buffs, it's a lot easier to try and pull off than making sure your opponent has no buffs at that certain corner. Lightning Bringer, thank you, White Wolf, for the card name of the day. Lightning Bringer is the card I was talking about. Well, where I think this one actually, I mean, if you build this archetype, this card is definitely going to be of a 2 or a 3 of in that deck. Because yes, it's 4 corners, so you can lay like 2 Fearless Divers and have those just be 2 water buffs, and then it's easy to lay 2 more water buffs to get the full effect of them as they go off. So yeah, I think it's one that they're trying to build an archetype of. I'm gonna give it a solid 3-star because if you're gonna try that archetype, you're gonna want to run 3 of these cards because they're that probably important in this new archetype. I don't see them being run outside of it, unfortunately, because doing 5 damage after 4 turns is really nothing. There's Spark Wisp, which is instant. There is Dust Fiend, which is 1 less, which is instant. There's Storm Shaman, which increases your damage. All this stuff. There's a lot more efficient ways to deal damage, but I feel like it's a fun archetype that you could try and build. Depends on how it does. If it's a more slower style, obviously, we'll see how Storm comes because it's always been leaning toward a more aggressive, just more instant impact damage. So we'll have to see how this new archetype rolls out. And I have high hopes for it. I have high hopes for all the new archetypes. So they're risking something, they're gambling on it in new archetypes, and I hope everyone that tries it just like I'm going to. So I'm going to give it a solid 3. It's probably a lot worse once they realize this archetype doesn't work compared to the other Storm ones, and you'll never see it play. But for what it's trying to do in the archetype that it fits, a 3-star. Solid. You're going to want to have it in it if you try it. Frenzied Zapper. Lightning, Elemental Defend card. Okay, deal 3 separate hits of 2 damage to any heroes. The same hero cannot be selected more than twice. This cannot be increased by effects. Damage is dealt before the next hero is selected. Interesting. So pretty much how I'm reading this, unless really New Digital Challenge win with only Creeble cards. That could be interesting, depending on if there's a lot more water Creeble cards, or if not, just use it as a Creeble card for 5 damage. That could be fun. That could be fun to try. So Frenzied Zapper, what I'm reading is, unless you're playing multiplayer, this will deal 4 damage to your target and then 2 damage to you. Because it's not any other hero, so you have to be the 3rd target unless you're playing multiplayer. So it's like, oh, I deal 4 damage. Yep, exactly. This hits you once in a 2-player game. So, and obviously it can't be increased. It's 2 points of 2 damage, which in some parts may be better. Like against Mountain Fort, it ticks it twice instead of just once. It can't be increased, so you can't do like Storm Shaman go 6 and 6 and you take 2 or whatever. So I mean, it's a well-designed card for what it does. We'll have to see how it plays out. I'm like I said, really hope multiplayer becomes a thing because this card in multiplayer could be really fun. Where it's like, hey, 2, 2, 2, everyone takes damage, have some fun. For Lightning though, again in this new meta, it's probably way better to run Spark Wisp. It's way better to even run Crackling Beast, stuff like that. I think Spark Wisp is also now an elemental in this new set, so it's a Lightning elemental card. This is a defend, so if your opponent's like, hey, you can't attack and whatnot, defend could get around it. There's ways, but I mean, outside of multiplayer, you taking 2 damage is not worth it, in my opinion. It could be fun to see in draft, just to kind of see what happens. But I mean, this card is probably going to be a 1-star card for me outside of multiplayer, because once multiplayer hits, then this card will be a 4-star card. Then it'll be a lot of fun. But until then, it's 4 damage to your opponent, 2 damage to you. A defend card, which there's not a whole lot of defend cards that deal damage in Storm, so it fills that niche nice. But there are a lot of other elementals now. The old ones have become elementals. That this one just doesn't feel appropriate to run over the other ones for damage purposes. So I mean, yeah, you're probably never going to see this card run over cards like Spark Wisp or Crackling Beast, which is a beast, not an elemental too. But I mean, it's a really unique design, but it's not going to see play. Exactly. There'll be so many. White Wolf says they made a handful of cards in this set that would all be 5-star if you could increase by effects. That is so true. I've seen at least 6 or 7 that I'm like, man, if this could be increased, that'd be a game-ending card. Which, if just an action card, would break the game. It would make this whole game like focused around those cards. But yeah, I think a 1-star card. You're not going to see it run over other stuff. Greedy Gas Bag. All right, we have a Beast, Air, XX Non-Dormant, Burn, move all combos from your discard pile to your deck. This card, guys. This card I think is really, really fun. So in this one, you with Storm still having access to its old combos, it does have, I think it's called Storm Calling, if I'm not. Best name card in the game, Greedy Gas Bag. Yeah, I love these really meme type names. In my opinion, I don't see you running actually even more than one of this in a deck. Why is this common? Because meh? Because good cards are common? Why not? I mean, it is burn, so you can obviously bring this back for the consistent recursion, because that would be ridiculous. But it's move all your combos from your discard pile to your deck. It does the same thing that Storm Calling does. So the way I'm seeing this card is you only really run it in one of those longer type games where you want to play that archetype with Storm, where you just play a lot of combos in a game, and that's all you really want to focus on doing is playing a lot of combos. So you play like your 4 main combos, then you Storm Calling to put those 4 combos back into play. Then you lay all your other combos. Hopefully by that point in the game, you have wasted your opponent's buff removal so that by the time you can lay this one late in the game to then move all 5 of those back into play, one of them also being Storm Calling, it will always go off. So that when it goes off, you get all your Storm, they're back in your deck, so you can shuffle them again. Yes, you can restart or rotate this back, but with how many corners and how fast it actually goes off, it might not be worth it because it's like, oh cool, I rotated one back, and the next turn I haven't laid a combo within that one turn that I rotated it back, so it does nothing. Like, yes, you can do it for the memes, and if you like get really lucky on your card draw, you can restart this buff once you get your combos back, and then like hopefully lay another combo and then get that one back for another time. But I see what you're saying that it can be happen, but it's probably never going to be used that way. Just because, like I said, you have to then lay a combo like the next turn, otherwise this card does nothing. But yeah, I mean, I think this is in that certain archetype, or even just as a second replacement to Storm Calling. If you run Storm Calling, you're going to run one of these. They go hand in hand. They really make those games that you focus on your combos really good. I'm going to say it's like a 3.5 star card. It does the same thing that a combo does, just a little worse. Obviously, you have to wait a few turns. Your opponent can remove it, but with a card like this, and if you're running, like I said, Storm Calling, you're not going to lay this until you cycled through your combos twice. By that time in the game, your opponent should have efficiently used their buff removals on all of your really good buffs. So this one is going to stick. This one is going to sit there, and it's going to go off. And you're going to get combos into the late game, which is really weird because you think that if you lay those combos, you're going to win by the second round of them going off, not by the third or fourth. But we'll see how this meta changes. We'll see how everything's going longer games. If you're playing a more defensive deck, I can definitely see this being run in Mill. God, Mill. But, I mean, if you're running Mill, you're probably going to run like 2 or 3 of those just to get your combos back, get Tornado back, get all this stuff back, and just really outlast the long game. And I really think that I hope that does not happen on the app. I hope people aren't just running Mill Storm, and that would be so annoying. So annoying. But it's possible. It's always possible. But yeah, I'm going to give this a 3-star card. It's a really solid card for what it does. It's the same thing a combo does, just a little worse, which we've seen other cards do. The Musician for the Nature does the same thing that Ancient does. So, I mean, it's one of those cards that's like, yeah, you'll include one. I don't need more than one, but one is good to have in a deck for what it does. So, yeah, I really like it. I think it's a well-designed card. Giving it burn was very much needed. Way to put that in everyone's head. Hey, man, if more people watch me to get these crazy ideas, more viewers? I mean, I'm not encouraging it. In no way, shape, or form am I encouraging it, because that would be a 45-minute game. Because then everyone would do it, and then you'd have a game that lasts for an hour and a half. And the only people that do that are people that take long poops, or people that sit at home and play this game. Which one are you? Anyway, Creeble Warcrier. We have Storm, Creeble attack card. 4 damage. If this card is used to pay for a combo attack or defend, increase that damage of the combo by 1. Now, I like what it's trying to do. Is more viewers worth playing against Mill all the time? No, you got me on that one. You got me on that one. Guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, no. Don't do that. Just skip those last 30 seconds. On Twitch, just forget that it happened. I didn't say anything. It's only used for a certain archetype. Why would you use it for anything else? Why would there be other reasons for cards like this? All right, Creeble Warcrier. So it's another wind attack Creeble card for 4 damage. Awesome. Um, so it's getting more, more into the attack. So maybe you run this if you're trying to just really push damage with combos. But I feel like if it's with all the other air cards that I've seen just from Dust King and Dust Fiend that are air cards used to pay for combos, is 1 damage, increasing your combos by attack, and then 1 more damage from this attack that you would lay later in the game, worth it rather than just keeping a card in your hand or being able to pay your combos more efficiently. Which, in my opinion, I just don't see it happening that way. This card is better after you review combos. There's a new combo that does 2 hits of 1 on 4 corners. Oh, okay. Well, no, that's corners. That would be buffs. This only affects the attack and defend cards, White Wolf. So that would not increase it. If it's a buff, it would not be increased by this. So yeah, I mean, it's yeah, no worries, man. That's why we're going through these cards. That's why we're reading them out loud and learning all these things. But yeah, I don't think this card is going to be run over all of the other options for wind cards alone and for the cards that are utilized to pay for combos. There's just so much better stuff to run other than just, hey, Tornado now does 11 damage. Cool. Like stuff like that. I don't care. I'd rather keep a card in my hand to deal 3 damage the next turn or pay for it more efficiently so I can redo these combos a lot more. I think this is just going to be, it's a 1-star card. Yes, it's Creeble, but like I said, Creeble isn't a family that has been fully flushed out yet. The reason you'd probably even pick this in draft is just for the damage, because 4 damage is fine. 4 damage is a good card. It's a wind attack card. You don't see a whole lot of those. But for its other card for payments in Constructed, it's probably not going to see any sort of play over the other ones that you have access to. So that's why I'm giving it like a 1-star. In draft, I'd say it's like a 3. 3-star in draft, 1-star in Constructed. All right, Lightning Conduit. Now, this is the machine card that I looked at that I didn't really look at. So we have 4 clunky corners, machine, lightning consistent or buff with burn, so it can't be fetched back. Okay, that's fine. Instead of discarding, move lightning action cards to the bottom of your deck. Now, that's interesting. This card I see being like run a 1 of. I don't see it being run more than that. But the way I'm reviewing this card is there's already a card out there in Wind that's like it does 1/1 damage, and then you get to move 2 lightning cards from your discard pile back to your hand. So there's a lot of lightning recursion going along now in Storm, because lightning is their damaging stuff. And this one, obviously, instead of discarding, you move your next 4 lightning action cards, because it's not like during these turns it's clunky corner, so it's the next 4 that you do. So like after landing this, you could Spark Wisp, put Spark Wisp back. You could like Crackling Beast, do Crackling Beast. Storm Shaman would then go back after it expires. There's a lot of fun things that would happen. Even if your opponent tries to remove a lightning buff outside of this for some reason, the lightning buff would go back into your deck. And I think actually that means that burn cards can go back under your deck, because burn is isn't caught by store. I think that burn does still get around, move them back into your deck if they're not going to your discard pile. I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm like 50-50 that it's only been reworked to only work with the store effect, not with the move to the bottom of your deck effect. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But yeah, I think it's a decent card. The way I'm viewing it is Therapeutic Heal would just get put back under your deck, which is good if you really want card draw. But from what I'm understanding, like it's going to be maybe more of a sideboard tech card if you're running into a lot of people that heal and you just need to find a way to better get more lightning efficiency out of your attack cards. Yep, so it does. Burn cards can go back under the deck. Is that what I'm saying? That what you mean? Awesome. But yeah, this is like one that you put in if your deck fully runs out. Awesome. Did not know that. That's pretty cool. But yeah, like if the only reason you would put this in your deck is if your deck, which is running a lot of lightning cards, which means it's already being very aggressive with it, which means your opponent should be dying really quickly. So the only reason you would put this in your deck is if you're running into a lot of decks that just put up a lot of walls, put up a lot of heals to just get to their combo, and you need to still sustain with damage after like you've played all your damage and all of it's in the discard pile, and you're like, well, Now I have like 3 cards in my deck, and he's healing back up. I really wish I would have had a way to get those cards back for, later game damage for more damage. Because I mean, if you think about this, if the only lightning cards you draw are like Spark Wisp, Crackling Beast, this card essentially does for 4 corners becomes a 5 damage, 5 damage, 3 damage, 4 damage, or whatever for the lightning cards that you put back is what this card would read in just later in the game. So yeah, I mean it's probably a 2-star card. The way I'm looking at it, unless there's a lot of cards out there, it's like, hey, you got to discard cards for bonus effects or do this other thing for bonus effects. But if you're using it for lightning cards, your lightning cards should be efficiently dealing proper damage to your opponent to the point where in that type of deck where you're running enough lightning cards that they would just kill them by that time. Unless there's a lot of new lightning support that I haven't gotten to or haven't looked at, we'll see. We'll see how the lightning support is doing, but usually wind is their support, lightning is their damage, is how I'm generalizing Storm right now. So I mean, it's a interesting idea, but I feel that it's not gonna be played as often or as much as the concept would allow, because your lightning should just kill them right out as opposed to needing more of it later. So I think it is more of a sideboard card than anything. Lush Lost Pond. We have Water, Location, Defend. Okay, so we're seeing a lot more location cards that are not buffs outside of Mountain. That's pretty good. That means that Deluge Drifter is getting a little more value out of it. Draw 1 card for every different valid element on your buffs in play. In order, counts as all the elements you have access to. Interesting. Okay. So it's, I mean, outside of Therapeutic Eel, Storm doesn't really have a whole lot of card draw that I'm understanding, unless it's from like combos or whatnot. So I mean, just having this to be a 1 water card that can draw you, depending on how your buff is all, or your deck is all set up, draws you just 2 cards, might be fine. If you're running a crossorder deck and you have a crossorder combo in play, this card draws you 6 cards, which is insane. So I mean, running this with Mythical Heroes, you probably want to run like maybe 1, if not 2 of. I can see this being run in like Little Blammo that runs Water Dread. Oh, all the elements you have access to. Sorry. Yes. Thank you, White Wolf. Thank you. Now I'm the one who can't read. So yeah, I mean, it would draw you 3, and if you had a weapon, it would draw you 4. After seeing that, it's a little worse than I thought. I thought it drew you 6, which was nuts. But I mean, yeah, it could draw you 1, 2, or 3, and then if you run weapons, which with a lot of the new weapons on, maybe you are. Maybe you're running for those buffs, and this will draw you 4 cards, which is not bad. I mean, in my opinion, honestly, if you're running 3 of these in your deck and you consistently draw 2 off of them, that's just card cycle to get you through your deck to be a more aggressive style deck. That's completely fine. Because in your water, I mean, it's either that or like Vitalizing Frog to heal and then draw out later. Whereas instead of healing, you're just getting more cards to do things quicker. So if you think about it in that sense, it's replacing your heal to get through your deck faster to then be more aggressive. I think this card has a place. I think this card really does have a nice place in Storm. Especially in the more aggressive style Storm, to really get your card draw going, really not kind of run out of steam at any point in time. You can still run Bubblefish. Obviously, you want more buffs in play, so you want Lightning, Storm, and Air buffs in play, so you get the max value out of it. So you're going to run a variety of that stuff like that. But I think Lush Lost Pond in certain decks could just replace its healing. To a minor point, if you are being very aggressive and you just want to beat them down quicker than they can beat you down, I think it's fine. I think it's a really good card. I think it's a 3-star card, very efficient. In draft, it's going to be like a 5-star card because card draw in draft is obviously going to be insane. But yeah, I mean, it's probably going to see play in some Storm decks. Even if you just splash water in to add some water buffs and you're in an already buff heavy deck, add this in for card draw. If your deck really lacks card draw, this thing could draw you a total of 4 cards sometime. If you're playing the water for Bubblefish or anything like that for the water buffs, especially with a lot of the new continuous water buffs, I think it could be really good. Water is starting to be more of a card draw, especially with its buffs that we've seen when they expire, you draw cards. And this is just, it's including it. It's being more or less heal instead of more card draw, which is a very, very good one to kind of replace if the way card games have been going. So, I mean, I think this is a solid card. It's a well-designed card. I think it's going to see a lot of play, even outside of blue. It actually might see more play outside of Storm than inside of Storm if you can get 4 card draw with it very efficiently. I think it's a good card. Keep a lookout for it. It's also location, so you can, location family or deny it with Deluge. Have some fun with it. I hope you do. All right, Octopuff Oracle. It's a Beast Wind buff, X2/2. Any hero that plays a combo draws rotation cards. Now this is interesting. I don't see this card being run more of like 1. It's a Beast card, so it runs with all the Beast synergies that you have. But it's one of those cards where it's a very big tell, but it also can be a really fun bluff. You can lay this and your opponent goes, all right, he's going to lay a combo the next 2 turns. I need to either remove this or prepare for that. Or if you just lay it and just don't do anything and your opponent tried to be more defensive, it's one of those, it's a really fun mind game card that you can either use for what it's supposed to be doing, or you could just be like, hey, I have like 6 cards in my hand, and then all you do is lay action cards, and they're like, what? Where's the combo? And you're like, I wasn't going to play one. I wasn't going to do anything. So, I mean, it's a nice card. We've been seeing a lot more better card draw from just buffs being expired. This also helps your opponent, which is sometimes really bad if they've been holding back on stuff, for them to draw cards. Because, I mean, if they were holding back for a certain turn to do stuff, and you lay this, and like, oh, well, I'm just going to I'll pay for this combo with this combo, and then draw 2 cards on top of the third one for drawing a combo, that could just be enough to make them play their combos. Yeah, I don't think it's really strong enough to be actually put into a real deck. I'm going to give it like a 1.5. I like what it's trying to do, but because it helps your opponent in the same way, it helps multiplayer. In multiplayer, it helps everyone, so everyone's going to benefit from this. So you when you play it in mind, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm really going to benefit from this. And then like 3 other people draw 2 cards off of it, and you're like, wow, that was not what I wanted to happen at all, and it becomes a detriment to you. And you're like, wow, this really, really sucked. And, I mean, it's one of those buffs that your opponent is not going to want to remove. It doesn't deal damage, doesn't do healing, it's just card draw for everyone. And that's just beneficial for everyone. So it's a buff that no one wants to remove, so no one's going to waste buff removal on it. It's one of those that it helps everyone too much as opposed to just helping you, when there are so many other buffs that just help you. So I don't think anyone's really going to play this card, unless it's a meme deck. Maybe you want to play maybe splash this into Insect to make your opponent want to draw more cards and have their deck be empty, and you can do stuff like that. I don't know. That's what I'm going with from the past nature video. But this one, I just don't think it's going to see a whole lot of play as opposed to other things that you can do in a limited deck that work with combos, the way the Storm does. I just don't see it being played. Royal Windrunner. We have 2 non-dormant, Elemental with Wind buff. Beast and Insectoid buffs on all other heroes are dormant. You may rotate any of your Beast buffs 1 step forward as the center's play. This is ridiculous value from 1 card. I've already tried to lament that Beast has been spread out throughout a lot of colors. It's at least in Astral, in Storm, and in Nature. Could not think of the word. So already that's 50% of the alignments that could run Beast. Insectoid is obviously still in Nature, so it's not like you're hitting that 4th niche that isn't Beast, and you're not hitting a specific one. So you're still hitting that one. But their buffs are dormant. It's not your buffs. So like you want to run this as support in a Beast Storm deck, because then it also rotates not just one, it's anyone. No, wait. Yeah, you may rotate any of your Beast buffs 1 step forward. Does that mean any amount? So you could rotate like 3 Beast buffs? If I'm reading that correctly, you could rotate like all of your Beast buffs 1 step forward and get major value out of this card? Or is it any, because it doesn't say any one of your Beast buffs, it's just any of your Beast buffs. So if I'm reading that correctly, you could have like a really good lineup of Beast buffs, and also Thunderslug is a Beast now, so you could lay this, or lay Thunderslug and then this, and rotate Thunderslug to get that really good value, which is just nuts. I know, right? If I'm reading that correctly, that seems broken. In a Beast deck, you're probably going to want to run 2 or 3 of these to make sure you get that value. It doesn't have burn, so you can keep doing that. It shuts down a lot of aggression decks against Beast, but like the value of it just from yourself, outside of it being the defense lockdown of those specific types, if you're running this in a Beast deck, you're going to want to run this. You're going to want to run this to speed up all of your Beast buffs, which is from what they've seen from the heroes and everything else. Beast buffs want to be sped up. They want to be rotated and gotten to the last corner to deal all the damage in a very spiky turn. And if that is correct, that you can rotate any of your Beast buffs, not just any one, but any of them, 1 step forward, That is so much value. That is ridiculous value. Like, oh my god, is that nuts. That would also depend on what the Beast Buffs for Storm do. In which case, maybe you just splash in the Wind Weapon and put this in any of the Astral or Nature Beast decks and just run wild with this, and that would be awesome. That would be so good, and because Beast is so spread out, this is going to be a good card. I'm going to put this down as like a 4.5 in this archetype. Obviously, for what it does defensively, it does... oh my god, Greedy Gas Bag is a beast. Nuts! Yeah, you can get your combos back really fast. That's awesome. I love all the memes and stuff is happening with this new set. But I mean, defensively wise, you probably wouldn't run this just to make a certain family dormant, because unless that family is very predominant, this card is going to do nothing but sit there. So you're really looking at this only wanting to run it in a beast archetype, which is why I'm giving it such a high rating. Because outside of that beast archetype, you're probably not going to run this card. Maybe put like one in a sideboard in case like you're really weak against all the beast aggression, and you can put this in there to slow them down for a turn or two. But like rotating all your beasts, like that is so nuts. That is such value out of this that I'm giving this a 4-star card if I'm correct on the way it's read. If it is only one beast buff, then maybe not. Then maybe it's like a 3-star card. You'd run 1 or 2 in a beast deck, but no, that's nuts value. That is so much good value out of an action card, and I hope it works, because that's going to break a lot of games, and that's going to bring Storm Beast into the limelight of a lot of aggression, and I cannot wait to try this card out. Safety Crab. Hey, look, guys, a beast buff. Oh, my God. We have XX2. Healing, draw cards. That is going to be really fun. I think Beast is going to run maybe like 3 of these. Because, I mean, Water, like I said, has been going into the more of that card draw as opposed to healing. This one does both. You have to wait 2 turns to get it, but being a Beast buff, you can fetch for it easier with a lot of the Beast synergy cards. You can rotate it faster with a lot of the Beast synergy cards. This card is going to see a lot of play. It's going to be very defensive, very hand fill oriented, that your opponent is going to see this and be like, wow, I should really remove that. And at the same time, they're also going to be like, well, there's also this Beast buff over here. It's taking me for like 3 damage a turn. Maybe I should also remove that one. I don't know what to do here. I'm going to give this card like a 4.5 rating. It's amazing in draft. It's healing and card draw on a buff that has very limited buff removal. It's a beast, so it's going to fit into a lot of this beast archetype stuff. It's water for the continuous water buff archetype. There's just so much to do with this buff that it's just going to be a really good value when you see it. It's like Delivery Crab, where it's healing and draw cards. Obviously, you get 1 more card draw from it being a buff, but it fits the water buff archetype nicely as opposed to a defend card. So I really like this card. I really like the design of it. I think it's actually going to see a lot of play. The first time I saw it, I was actually like, man, I mean, drawing 2 cards, yeah, after 2 turns, okay, you should be drawing by that time. Healing for 2 is very minuscule. But like after seeing all the family synergies that I have been seeing, I think this card was very undervalued the first time I saw it. And going into this, doing these reviews, I think it was a very new, fresh light of seeing this. And this card is going to be awesome. Wish it healed for 3 for Korra. I mean, if you got that, then this card would be like a lot better just based on those heroes. I think 2 healing is fine. I think 2 healing is completely fine. You don't need that. There's so many other heals that heal for 3, heal for 4 and 5 and stuff like that. The Korra, there's already a good Korra deck. You don't need to add more to the Korra deck. That's a fine deck. But I understand what you're saying. Like, yeah, I wish it did this to actually work with some of these other cards. But you could say that about 50% of this game, where you wish these cards would work well with other cards if it was like 1 point off. So I get what you're saying there, but no, I think this is like a 4-star card. I think it's a really well-designed card, especially now that it fits the Beast meta. You're going to see this card a lot. This is going to be like a 3 of, and it's going to have a lot of fun value. Stratus Swooptail. So we have 4 clunky corners, 0, 1, 2, 2. It's an elemental, so it fits that nice family. I'm still kind of tempted to see what elemental does. It seems like right now they're just a support class. I haven't seen a whole lot of like you want to build an elemental deck yet. So hopefully as we come into that, we'll be able to see what the elementals do as a whole. Onto the card. Reduce your combo costs by rotation. Rotate this 1 step forward when you play a combo. That's actually pretty interesting. The way I've been looking at all the Storm in the past and even presently now, you want to lay continuous combos all the time. So being able to play like your cheap combos first and then later in the game, you play your 4-cost combos for 2, could be really fun. And if you play Fish Singer Ushi, that becomes essentially like 1, 2, 3, 3. So you just lay out your combos, just go ham on it. I probably don't see you running more than 1 of this in a deck. Yes, they can stack, so if you have like your first combo does nothing, and then they both rotate. Then the next one costs 2 less. Then they both rotate, and you're like, next 2 combos cost 0, no matter what, unless it's increased by something outside of that. But like, that's way too much value that your opponent is just like, I'm gonna remove those. I'm gonna remove 1. So having 1 is efficient value. 2 is just 2 is for the memes. 2 is for the memes. It's you just go ham on stuff like that. But at the same time, like I was saying before with Cyclone Tamer, by the time you lay your 3rd combo, you should be winning the game, if not in a really good position, just kill them with action cards. So this card, in my opinion, is one of those, like, you want to be able to lay it really early in the game, get it out, and if you lay it early, I will. So if you want to do it early, you have to get it out really early, because late in the game, unless you're running that certain type that is very combo recursion, get them all back in your deck, lay them again, get them all back in your deck, lay them again, playing this anywhere in the mid to late game is not going to get you more than, like, to the 3rd corner. And on that point, it's not that worth it, because you have all the cards in your deck that utilize paying for these combos really efficiently, like Dust King, Dust Fiend, all that stuff. So paying for them becomes a lot easier than having them just be a lower cost. So, I mean, I like the concept. I think in draft it's going to be a nuts card. This is a great card to have in draft. It's going to be like a 5-star card for your combos to pay for them cheaper, especially because draft is very hard to pay for certain combos because of the cards. So having this one out, making it just really easy to pay for these more difficult to pay combos is an amazing value out of this card. But outside of or inside of Constructed, this card is maybe a 1.5, if not 2-star card, because I think there was also a Corvid in the Awakening set where, like, it was XX3, where on the 3rd one your combo costed 3 less, and that one was almost never run because in Storm you had such efficient ways of paying for your combos that you didn't care about the reduction, and by the time you had to go off, you're like, cool, I get to lay this for that, and it wasn't even a killing blow because your opponent saw it coming. So it's one of those. Swooping Corvid, thank you. Swooping Corvid is the card I'm talking about. Where, like, compared to that, it's like that card was never run anywhere. This card is probably going to see that same treatment. It's not going to be run. There's a lot better ways to efficiently pay for cards with your action cards. That this is just, it's going to do nothing. It really isn't. And even if you run it in an elemental deck, Dust Fiend and Dust King are both elementals, which are better payments for combos in the wind alignment. That it's just, I don't see it being run, unfortunately. It's like a 1-star card in Constructed, 5-star in draft. It's one of those where it was meant to be built for in draft. All right, Summoner of Storms. We have Lightning Attack, 1 damage. Really? Increases by 2 for each elemental buff you have in play to a maximum of 7. Okay, I see what you're doing here. So, obviously this one doesn't have a family alignment. For this one, that's fine. That would be nuts for the Storm, for Lightning, for damage-wise. But, like, having an action card that has potential of dealing 7 could be good. Mind you, it's probably always going to be better to run Spark Wisp over this. This one looks like it wants to be in a very heavy elemental-based deck. In which case, why wouldn't you run an elemental-based attack that does 5 damage consistently, as opposed to this one, like having a chance to do 7? I don't know. Unless you're like, all of your deck is built around elemental buffs. They stay out and play. They do all this stuff. All the elemental buffs that I have been seeing lately have been support for other families or support just in general, where you don't really want to have a mass load of them out. Maybe as we go on and we see some stuff like that, it's different in the later elemental cards. I don't know. But this card is just, it's not good. I like the concept where it increases in a dramatic effect. It increases by 2 instead of 1. But I think putting a max on it is what kind of kills me for it. There's the Dread card. The Abyss Sweeper all oh yeah, that's right, the Abyss Tentacles and that stuff. So maybe this is when you splash it into like a Dread deck that runs a lot of really fun, consistent elemental buffs. So this one will deal 7 damage all the time because you have those buffs out. I don't know, depends. I mean, I feel like that deck is already efficiently fine where you don't need to go memes with it. It's just a solid deck on its own. Or maybe you splash Dread into purple. Because, I mean, it's Shadow, so you can't even run it with, like, Nemi to get this benefit from it. You'd have to do something else. So we'll see. I just don't think it's going to be run almost at all. It's going to be dead in draft. It's going to do, like, 1, maybe 3 damage in draft. In Constructed, there's way better cards to run with it with elemental cards. Because it has a cap on it is what kills me. There is I think it's Defiler in Dread that it's 2 damage, increase it by 1 or 2 for every buff you have in play. That one doesn't have a max, so that one can hit for like 8 or 9, which is really good. And if this one didn't have a max, depending on how the elementals roll out, unless the elemental buffs are also aggression, maybe taking that max off here to have this be one of those really good, like, hey, all my elementals have been supporting me, this is my really big heavy damage hitting card. Maybe that would have been fine for a fun elemental deck, but lately all the elementals have been support cards, which don't lead me to believe that it's worth running this for hopefully 7 when you could be running Spark Wisp for a very consistent 5. I don't know. We'll see how the archetype lines out, but I'm giving this a 1 star. I don't think it's going to be seen. Compared to other cards that you have access to, it's not going to be seen. All right, Spark Charge Twister, Lightning Elemental attack card. Cool, more elementals, I like it. No buff, of course, but attack. 3 damage. If your last discarded card is a combo, you may rotate one of your buffs 1 step forward. Interesting. Interesting. Now, I do like that aspect, where they're also going in if the top card of the discard pile is a combo, you get a benefit from it too. I think that's one other consistent, I think it was like Bug Rider, where if the last card, if your top of the discard pile was a combo, your next damage was increased by 3, or your next attack was. I didn't really see that card being played a whole lot, unfortunately. Because there were so many ways, like, yeah, I laid a combo, then it's like one of your buffs rotates out like Bubblefish does, or Swooping Corvid will rotate out if you ever played that card. Like, stuff like that, it just kind of, it's really hard to line up the combo. So, it's 3 damage with a very situational thing that you have to obviously lay it after a combo, which means you have to keep it in your hand, which means paying for the combos has to be a lot more, the big hand size. Yeah, I'm not as concerned with this card as I am. Because you have to really line up your board state before you lay a combo to even do it. Because obviously it seems like it wants to be rotated in a beast deck, because that's the one that wants your buffs to rotate forward. I mean, you could obviously Greedy Gas Bag, then do this, rotate it forward after a combo, and get the combos back easier. I'm sure it has a place, but I just don't see it fitting anywhere in the past meta, even in this future present meta that no one even knows. I'm going to give it like a 1.5. It's very difficult to pull off, mostly because if your top card of your combo, that means that no one removed a buff from your last turn. Your buffs hasn't rotated out the last turn. You haven't done anything since you laid the combo, which is really lucky for you. I mean, if people had that kind of synergy stuff, people would probably like Bug Rider a whole lot more, but people were playing Storm Shaman over it, because Storm Shaman lay into a combo for 14 damage, then Storm Shaman will go on top of your next turn, and then you wouldn't get that benefit. So it was very difficult to pull off just with a consistent buff that I don't think it's still going to be pretty difficult to pull off. Also with your buffs basically needing to like 3 corners for them to rotate to the final one. It's way too situational to get the full value out of it. I just don't see it happening. I would like it to have been like a 4 attack card, because then it would have been fine for another lightning card to be 4 attack, and then like the conditional was so difficult to get to that it didn't matter past that. But being a 3 damage card, it doesn't hit home, doesn't feel like a good solid made card. But then again, you could be finding a certain meme deck that really powers through with it and just blows it away, and it's a very important card. I'm giving a 1.5, maybe even 1 rating, that you're not going to see it a whole lot. It's too difficult to pull off properly. That's what I'm doing. That's what I'm saying. Swirling Purifier, 2 clunky corners, 2/2, water buff, consistent water buff, guys. I'm liking this new archetype they're trying to develop. Elemental, okay, we got an elemental buff. Okay, maybe that whole storm, what was it, Summoner of Storms could be benefit. I don't know. Maybe it actually works into the water buff. I don't know. We'll see how we're going. Rotation damage to all other heroes and heal for 1 at the start of your turn. This buff only rotates if all heroes have a buff in play. Okay, that seems like it's only going to last for 2, maybe 3 turns if you're lucky. Because there's cards like Turtle Captain, which everyone was like, yeah, Turtle Captain's really good. And then Turtle Captain was only like for 1 turn, and then, hey, it rotates out, or something like that. Like, there's so much easier ways. If it was like, it rotated out if your opponent didn't have a buff, kind of like how Turtle Captain was, where your opponent had a buff, so it stayed there. This is if like all heroes. So in multiplayer, it's a lot better, obviously, because in multiplayer you can focus on one hero not having a buff, and as long as one person doesn't, then this thing stays in play. So it's meant primarily for multiplayer. Outside of that, it's like a 1-star card. It's essentially going to do 4 damage, heal you for 2, which there's already better action cards that do that. It doesn't even draw you card, which is what I wanted Water to start doing in this step from the previous cards that I've seen. Yeah, I'm going to give it a 1-star. It's, even though it's Clunky Corner, it's going to act like a non-Clunky Corner 95% of the time. I can guarantee it. Unless, of course, like I said, you're playing multiplayer, in which case I really hope these fun multiplayer decks start coming out, because these are going to be fun to play and fun to see how the completely sideways concept of playing multiplayer is so much different than playing one-on-one, that those decks are going to be a lot more creative and more fun built around to do that with this kind of stuff. And that one, I think it's going to be like a 5-star card in multiplayer. You're always going to want this one for the value in multiplayer. Single player, it's like a 1. It's just not good. Not good at all. Thunder Brewer, we got an attack for lightning. Okay. 3 damage. Deal 3 damage to your target if you play a combo while it's on the top of your discard pile. Okay. Once again, they're doing more of the, if the top card of your discard pile. They're trying to be like a semi-astral with these whole, like, if your combo's on top, or if this one's on top, then your next combo would do. So, I mean, this is a very, very blatant lead-up to a combo turn if I've ever seen one. If you lay this card, your opponent goes, okay, he, like, by that time you're going to have maybe a buff out or something like that, and it's like, okay, well, he's going to lay a combo next turn, otherwise the buff is going to go on top and he's not going to get the benefit from it. So this one, I like what they're trying to do, but then again, I don't think it's ever going to be efficient enough or be playable enough. It's a very meme-style card, very meme, that just isn't going to have the prime effect. It's the same essentially with, like I said, way back when we're Bug Rider. If your combo is on top, your next damage would deal 3 more. Your next attack would deal 3 more. This is essentially the same thing, but it has to be a combo card, so it's even more restricted than that. This card has to be on top, and then your next combo will deal 3 more damage. And if it's just a small damage increase, think about it this way, it's comparing it to cards that are just solid cards, like Spark Wisp, that is almost always run in Storm decks. Comparing this to Spark Wisp, it's 1 less damage, this is 1 more damage than Spark Wisp, but to get that conditional extra damage, you have to hope your opponent doesn't remove a buff, that you have a combo to play the next turn, that your opponent doesn't try and play around, where it's like worth it to get that extra 3 damage. Crackling Beast does the same thing, but Crackling Beast says, hey, remove a buff to increase it to 3. And a lot of times you remove like Storm Shaman after the second one, or you remove Thunder Slug after it's been gone, and it's way more efficient to get that extra 3 damage. Compared to just those 2 cards alone in Lightning order, this one doesn't even belong to a family. This is like a 1-star card. There's so many 1-star cards in Storm going down to this list, and it's very sad that they've already built up such a strong base of Storm that these new cards, they're trying to do so much fun and new things with it that it's just, what they're trying to do is really difficult to pull off the way this game is designed. And it's just, a lot of these cards are not going to see play outside of like maybe the Beast cards, honestly. Maybe Beast is the only fun new blue archetype that I'm finally seeing, and or the mass combo deck. But yeah, this card, it's a 1-star card. It's rarely going to see play over the other lightning attack cards, because it's always just going to be 3 damage. It's very rarely going to be 6 that your opponent can't find a way out of. It's probably what it is. Thunderbill. All right, we have XX, non-dormant, non-dormant. It's a beast buff, awesome for lightning. Increased damage done by your lightning cards equal to the number of water buffs in play. Awesome, awesome card, guys. Now, this is going on the whole, you want to have a bunch of water buffs in play. You want to have 3 or 4 water buffs in play. And this is just your lightning card. So, obviously, like, if probably only going to run one, it's very difficult to get to those final corners with your water buff still being out. You're probably going to save this up for maybe, like, mid to late game, because you have to get your water buffs out first for this one to even do a bunch of damage. But it could be, like, that mini... I mean, people in Dread were running the Shaman one. I can't think of the name. That did, like, increase by 3, increase by 2. I feel really bad because that Shaman is, like, a staple in a lot of Storm and a lot of Dread decks for massive increased damage. But this essentially could just be one of those for blue. It could just be 2 and 2, and it would still be good. Mind you, it's very restricted to your lightning cards, but your lightning is where you're probably going to get a lot of your damage from. It's where Spark Wisp is. It's where Crackling Beast is. It's where even a lot of these new really bad lightning attack cards that I've been giving right is all the Putrid Shaman. Thank you, Putrid Shaman. It's going to fit really well in that new archetype with a lot of the water buffs being consistently out, which because of that makes me feel fine to only run one of it in a deck, because it's very restricted to your lightning cards. It's not just your cards or your damage. It's your next lightning cards will deal increased damage based on the water buffs you have in play. And with how many just consistent buffs do you have in play, or even four corner buffs, you're probably going to get a decent 1 or 2 lightning cards out of this card before it loses steam. It is a beast buff, but I don't think you're going to run it in a beast deck because beast seems very not blue. I don't know, or your buffs are going to rotate too quickly for you to get full benefit out of this. Or maybe I'm lying. Maybe it's going to be running the beast deck all the time, and your beast is going to be a beast water buff hybrid, and you rotate this one forward really quickly to then lay your beast lightning cards. I don't know. But I'm just going to give this. I'm going to give it like a 2.5, where it feels like it fits the niche for a certain archetype. Outside of that archetype, it's going to be really difficult to play. But even in that archetype, you have to build up for it. You have to build up that play. It's not just always going to be a consistently good card, because if you draw it late in the game and all your water buffs have expired or gone to the graveyard, this card is going to be a dead card. It's just going to be, you're going to maybe get 1 or even nothing, and it's just going to sit there and rotate for 4 turns, and then bleh, it's gone. So it's very conditional, has to be in a certain archetype to do it, but when it does work, it can be a very powerful card for those specific lightning cards, which is where your attack damage is going to come from too. And it's your lightning cards, so like your lightning buffs, if they deal damage, if there's lightning buffs out that deal damage, this could be really fun. I think, what was it, Angered Shockfin was a lightning card, so like having this rotate with that and Angered Shockfin just being consistently out, every time one of their buffs expires, like the weird synergy out of that beast combo, it could like, you could have 2 water buffs in play and those 2, and then every time one of their buffs expires, they take 4 damage. And if you do that, that's really good value. That's nuts value. And they're like, oh god, I really don't want my buffs to expire. In which case you're like, I don't even care about, removing them. I want them to expire. I want you to take the damage off of it. So you could have some fun play around with these cards, but outside of that, it's just, I don't see this being a really hard-hitting, effective card more than like 30-35% of the time. That's why I'm giving it a 2.5. Volt Vandal. All right, we got a Lightning Creeble attack card. Awesome. 3 damage, increases by the number of water buffs you have in play. See, now this style is the type that I kind of wished the Summoner of Storms would have with its elemental, because this one doesn't have a max. This one is almost always going to be a 3-of copy in that new archetype where you're going to have a lot of water buffs in play. Because in that deck, you're most likely going to at least have 2, which makes this at minimum a Spark Wisp. But it could be beyond that. It could be 6, 7, 8. I mean, in the deck with the, what's the card I'm looking for? The Fearless Diver, where it wanted 4 water buffs in play. This then becomes a 7 damage card. Having Fearless Diver rotate doing 10 and then having this for 7, put that Thunderbolt in there to have it so that, oh, hey, all your lightning cards now increase by 4. Like, that is a huge spike turn. That makes, you did 10 damage from Fearless Diver. The Thunderbolt increases all your stuff by 4. So this one then becomes an 11-point attack card. And then you're always probably going to run Spark Wisp or something like that to also increase it to 9. So that's what, 10, 11, and 9. That's 30 damage just from those cards. Like it's the supreme prime board buildup. But just that potential out of that like makes your opponent really wary about your water buffs, which are headbund more defensive and whatnot, because of the synergy cards that work with it in the attack cards. I don't think you're probably ever going to run this outside of that archetype, because why would you run something where you only have like 1 or 2 when you could just be running Spark Wisp? Like, comparing those, you have to constantly keep in mind, is this better than Spark Wisp if I'm not running that certain archetype? And if it isn't, then why run it? Creeble, the family, hasn't been flushed out yet. There's no reason to mess the families in with it either way. But I do feel like in that new archetype, if it does work, this is going to be like a 4 or 4.5 star card in that archetype. Outside of it, it's dead. It's like a 1-star card. But the only reason I'm giving it such a high rating is because it will only fit in that style of deck. You will never see it outside of that style of deck. And when it's in that style of deck, when it's in that final niche of what it is, it's going to be a powerhouse. And it's going to be something that when you lay it, is consistently going to deal like 6 or 7 damage, and you're going to be really happy that you're not running Spark Wisp over it. And that's why I'm giving it such a high rating for such a very fine niche card. That's kind of also what I'm doing with my rating systems, where it's a good card for what it does in like one deck. Awesome. You're going to want 3 of it in there. It's going to be higher rated. If you're never going to see it out of that deck, I'm not even bringing that into opinion. I'm not even looking at it and be like, oh, this card is terrible. It's only going to fit in one certain deck. Why would you run it? It's because in that one deck, it makes that deck really good. And that's why it gets a high rating for me. So if you guys are confused about why I gave it such a high rating, that's why. That's why I give a lot of these cards probably better high ratings than some other people would look at it and be like, this card's just not good. Why would you do that? It's because you're never going to see it outside of that deck, which means I'm rating it based on how it's going to affect in that deck. And I hope that makes sense to you guys. I hope that makes sense, not just going, man, this guy's giving out really high ratings for a lot of these cards, and I don't know why. So I hope that works. Lightning, Vortex Charger. So we have 3 X's and then a 4th corner for 3. Elemental card. So, okay, we're starting to see a little more elemental buffs. We'll see what this does. Damage to your target. You may move 1 combo card from your deck to your hand. Interesting. Very interesting. I think this could be a fun card. I'm trying to think whether or not you would run more than 1 copy of it. If you're running that really heavy combo-based one, maybe. But you are waiting 3 turns to fetch for a combo. There is so much more efficient card draw in this new set that I've been seeing lately that you should be just drawing your combos faster than actually needing to fetch for it. And it is only 3 damage for waiting that long. I'm trying to outweigh the cost for the benefit of it. I mean, is there a reason to run it in that type of deck? Maybe based on all the other cards and the combos, like it's really difficult for me to try and piece together how that deck would run, because obviously you want a lot of good card efficiency to pay for the combos. You want cards that run with the combos to get them back, like the Greedy Gas Bag and all this stuff to really help your combo synergies out. That is it worth running this to fetch for a combo after 3 turns? Mind you, there's ways to speed it up, obviously, but to fetch for a combo after 3 turns, if you're drawing through your deck so fast that you're just going to be playing combos, doing things, recycling your combos, then late in the game, if you draw this, your deck should only be like basically combos, as those are the only ones that you bring back. So it's a toss-up. I want to give it a 3, but deep in my mind, I think it's only going to be like a 2-star rating, where you're obviously only going to see it in that one archetype where you want to fetch for your combos consistently, but you're probably not going to run more than 1, because if you do it more often than not, you're better off just running card draw to get your action cards to help you throughout the game than waiting to fetch for a combo. Mind you, it is a specific combo, so if you're looking for that one for a certain type of game, it could be beneficial. I don't know. It's probably better in draft, because draft obviously does not have a whole lot of card draw, not a whole lot of buff removal, and being able to fetch for a combo, a specific combo, is way more valuable in draft than hoping you draw it in a deck that is full of random cards that you pulled. So in draft, I would give it a much higher rating. I think this would be a really good card in those draft styles. In constructed, I don't see it, unfortunately, being played a whole lot over just card draw, because you never want to have really dead turns. And if you're waiting to draw a combo, you'd much rather just start drawing action cards, healing cards, more draw, more putting pressure on your opponent than just having them sit there and go, okay, well, in 3 turns, he's going to have a combo in his hand. I know that. It's one of those things where it's theory, could be good, but outside of theory, it's probably not going to be seen. So that's why I'm giving it a 2-star. Vortex Planes. We have 1, 2, and 3. Location, wind buffs. Okay, more locations. Cool. Outside of mountain, we're trying to do something here. Increase damage and healing of your elemental cards by the rotation. Very interesting. Now, I haven't... this could actually be really good. I'm trying to sit here like, I haven't seen a whole lot of really good elemental cards that are dealing damage, but then I'm like, wait a second. I just said Spark Wisp was an elemental card. I just said Dusk Fiend was an elemental card. Dusk King is an elemental card. This could just be... It could replace Storm Shaman in a very heavy elemental-based attack deck. It could be the new Storm Shaman. Because this is obviously for the next 3 turns it increases it, as opposed to the next 1. So your opponent can't make it rotate out, or they know the certain turn is coming, and you just kind of gradually build up to your stuff. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff you can lead up to with elemental buffs that deal damage as well. It is a location buff, so it doesn't really fit the elemental / beast archetype that Storm is going for. But I mean, I think it's a solid card. I think it does almost the same thing of what Storm Shaman has done, based on just all the attack cards in Storm now are elemental. So comparing them side by side, I think is a fair judgment. Where Storm Shaman is one big burst turn, this is you get 3 turns of just increased damage. And if you're playing more of a less spiky, more consistent style, this one would take the place of Storm Shaman. Yes, Storm Shaman is more lightning. This one is air. But that means that you can fit more lightning attack cards in and use this air for more support. So that's what I'm thinking. And if you're a wind mastery, laying this and then just a Dust Fiend for 5, like the same turn or something like that, could be beneficial. If you don't have Lightning Mastery, you could lay this and then Spark Wisp for 6 to kill them. Stuff like that. Really, it really differs depending on what mastery you have. That playing Wind increase over Lightning increase could be better in some circumstances. So I'm going to give it a 3-star. I think it's a really solid card. Unfortunately, like I said, I haven't seen Elementals do a whole lot outside of the Awakening and Mythical Elemental cards in this new Kindred set. They seem to be more of a support role in this new set, where I don't think their damage increase is going to be that beneficial as opposed to the older cards. So that's what I'm going with here. All right, Wind Runner. XX22, Elemental Air buff. Cool, awesome. When you play a Beast card, draw or deal rotation damage to your target and draw 1 card. This card looks insane, guys. This looks so good. I'm trying to think. What was the other... no, the other one that I said was broken in Beast was also Wind, wasn't it? Trying to look here for the name. The Royal Windrunner. The Royal Windrunner, as opposed to the Wild Windrunner, are both Wind. They both work in Beast. So splashing Wind into a Beast deck, you're going to have really good value from Storm. That just alone is perfectly amazing. But this, obviously, yeah, you'll wait for the 2 corners, and they're clunky, so they stay there. So you're always going to get the value from them. But then when you play a Beast card, you get to deal increased damage to your target and draw a card. The draw card is what makes this so good, because Beast is going to cycle through their cards so quickly. It's going to always want to lay their cards, that being able to play a card and draw a card and just deal a little extra damage when you play a Beast card could be really good. Mind you, this is an Elemental, so you could also, like, I don't know why you would want to run Vortex Plains with this card, because this card is always going to be in a Beast deck, not really an Elemental deck. But, I mean, yeah, just 2 Beast cards, drawing 2 cards off of dealing damage, and then getting 2 extra damage. The 2 extra damage is almost null and void. You really just want to be able to, when you play a card, draw a card. Like that stuff is so good. We see that from the Breach of the Veil. We saw that from Hive Mind in the past Nature set, why those cards were so good, because it's like when you play one, you draw one. It's a consistent cycle of cards, which is so good, especially in a limited deck format where it's only 35 cards. That this card you're probably going to want to run like 2 or 3 of in a Storm Beast deck, and these cards are going to be awesome. These cards are going to be ones that you want to like rotate speed up to, or you want to rotate back after you do certain things. I mean, just trying to think about it this way: if you splash Wind into Nature and you run that Beast card that's 2 damage, restart one of your action buffs, cool. I played a Beast card, so I dealt the 2 damage. I'll draw a card, and then I'll restart this to get back to its original value. Like, obviously, you can't do it on its final corner because the clunky corner would rotate out before you could rotate it. But like that kind of fun stuff is just so good, and I feel like just because of the card draw is going to make this a viable, if not dominant, card in the Beast archetype, where I'm going to give it like a 4.5, where it's only going to go in Beast. It's going to be a very good card in Beast. The only reason it's not getting a 5-star is because it's only going to last for 2 Beast cards, and because restarting it off a clunky corner means you're only going to get from the 1 corner value of it, because once you can't really like use both corners and then restart it because it's clunky style like that. So it can't be broken or mitigated like that, or overused in a sense where you restart and get mass value out of it, which is completely fine. But like just for the fact that you can lay 2 Beast cards in a turn and then draw 2 cards and deal an additional 4 damage essentially when this card reaches that corner, it's going to be a massive Beast support card. And we're seeing a lot of these Beast support cards come up for the Elemental set. I really like that. That one family is really helping another one just thrive. And I think you're going to see this card a lot in the Beast archetype. That's why I'm going like a 4.5, because if you're running a Beast deck in Storm, you're going to run this card. You're going to always run at least 2 of these cards, if not more. It's going to be so much value for them that they're going to almost be threatening to remove, where they could be removing a lot of your other stuff. I mean, even Thunderslug is a Beast now. Put that in mind. It doesn't even have to deal damage. It's just do like Thunderslug, remove a buff, draw a card, deal 2 damage. That's great value. That's great value on Thunderslug. All right, we're on to the weapons, guys. Or items. Sorry, we're on to the items now. All right, we got the wind one. Not superior. Draw one card when you play a combo. Wow. Wow, that is amazing. Okay. I see this. It's hard for me because I don't see this being played outside of Storm, honestly. This is going to fit really nice into that archetype where you play a lot of combos in one game. Outside of Storm, you don't have a whole lot of combo recursion. You don't have like a lot of bring back your combos and do these crazy fun stuff. Unless the water wipe, I think Storm Calling is wind water. So unless you splash both of those in to splash Storm Calling in to do all this weird stuff, I don't know why you would do that, but you could. It's just something you could do. But I think putting this into the Storm deck could be really good. It's card draw. Essentially, your combos now read, when you play them, you draw 2 cards instead of just the one for playing the combo. It's not a really detrimental item where your opponent is forced to remove it. It's just kind of one of those, man, he's cycling through his deck a lot faster now. And when you get down to that game where you're playing combo after combo after combo, then you play a combo to put them all back, and you play combo after combo after combo, having this weapon in that type of deck is going to be nuts. Outside of that deck, I don't really see it being played a whole lot. Yes, it would be fine to draw a card after some combos, but unless you play an efficient amount of combos in your deck, which a lot of decks are like, hey, I played 3 combos, you're dead at that time, this weapon is not going to see a whole lot of value outside of maybe just that one archetype, which is fine because it fits really well into that archetype. I am going to only give it like probably a 3-star rating. Maybe more. I know Shoal Slayer King is a really fun new Storm hero that says his ability is whenever you lay a combo, you may search your graveyard or discard pile. I think he's one of the 5-star heroes I gave in my set. Search your graveyard or discard pile for an item and put that item into your hand. So if you think about that, if you run this card and you play a combo, you automatically just get to draw Festival Mask. And then next turn you can lay it. And then he seems like a very combo-oriented type of hero. So he fits that archetype really well. So then you get this weapon out really early after your first combo. So then you automatically get 4 more card draw off it without having to waste a Tantosian Blacksmith on it, without having to do all this other things. So it's like the first combo you lay, you're going to get this card out. And if you get it out before that, it's 5 draw. And then if you cycle all your combos back in that archetype, then you get more card draw, which is really good because you want to be able to cycle through your deck to play those combos really quickly. So I think this card is going to be really nice in that archetype, and I can't wait to try it out. I can't wait to build it and see how that type of style goes, along with all the other ones. But I think in that archetype, it's going to be just a nice, solid card draw mechanic that your opponent is going to have a hard time removing because it's an item. It's not a buff, it's an item, unless they're running like item removal. So yeah, I'm going to give it a 3-star. I think it's going to fit really well into that archetype. I unfortunately don't think it's going to be seen anywhere outside of it. I'm trying to think. The other items that it even can come close to are, what's the other? Skyrider, which is banned. Skyrider is a banned card. And Tempest Rod, which no one really ever saw Tempest Rod. Tempest Rod is a superior wind attack ability. Remove 1 buff from another hero, discard 2 of your own cards. In this meta, I mean, maybe you'll see Tempest Rod, but Skyrider is a banned card, so you can't even look at that and say, oh, well, Skyrider is so much better. Because it is. It is better, and that's why it's banned. But yeah, I think this is just a nice, solid card that you really don't use it to gain the element. You use it in this new Storm deck. And it's going to fit really nicely in there to just be a good item to have as support. That's why I'm giving it a 3-star. Alright, superiority in Lightning. Perfect, because Lightning, you want to be able to back-to-back Lightning. So having this be the superiority one, I completely agree with. I love it. I'm 100% down. Attack ability. Deal damage equal to the number of different valid elements on your buffs in play. In order, counts as all the elements you have access to. Which could be really fun. Was the other card like this? I'm trying to think. Was the other action card that basically did the same thing also a Lightning card? What was the name of it? I'm trying to look here. Oh no, that was Lush Lost Pond that drew you cards based on that I'm thinking of. So it's water, so it didn't really fit into this archetype. But, I mean, having this attack ability, I mean, God, that's just, It's an attack ability on an item that, if you're only running blue, is probably not going to deal you more than 2 damage on average, and 2 damage abilities are not that good. So this is one that you want to splash into other colors, which is great because it has superiority, which means you're fine splashing it into other colors. And if you splash it into them, this could, on average, do like 3 or 4, which is a great attack ability. I think that's a great weapon. We'll have to see how splashing lightning into some other decks work. I know the old cards you probably would just splash in are Therapeutic Eel and Spark Wisp for very efficient card draw and then just decent damage. Maybe even just a Storm Shaman for that lightning benefit to it. Like those cards from the old set are probably still the only cards, in my opinion, that you would want to splash lightning into until I get more value into this. Because in what I've been seeing, I will get really excited about is the win cards that you want to really splice into. So I didn't really pay attention to the lighting ones of which ones they would bounce into other orders with. So I mean, you might just run this. Obviously, you want to run lightning buffs to get the fourth damage out of it. So I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I'm gonna give it. It's a 3-star item. It's a nice solid item, meant to be played outside of Storm, which is good because a lot of these other items I've been seeing have been meant to play inside their own elements in a lot of cases. This one is more like, hey, you want this to be an item that you use in another deck, which is, I think, really cool. I think it's a very, what they wanted, or what they should be doing with items, is making it so that it also benefits outside of their own deck, as opposed to just running that element inside of its own alignment, where you're all you're doing is using it for a benefit outside of a buff. But yeah, I think this is it's a nice solid card. You're probably going to see a decent amount of it, depending on what deck you're running it in. I know there was a tech hero named Rozo, where if you're below 15 health, your abilities on items trigger twice. So in a tech build, running this, having like 4 orders out, this is just 8 damage on one attack ability. That could be nuts. That could be incredibly insane with Rozo. So I mean, look out for Storm Blaster. It could be some really fun memeage in some places, but it's nothing like Flame Claws for Mountain is just gonna oppress and make its own archetype. Where this is just it's a solid card. It's not a poorly designed card. It's not a overbreaking card. It's just a good card. It's a fun card. Tear of Breeny. We have Water. Defendability. Remove one of your buffs to heal for 3. Now this is awesome. I really actually like this card. This card can be utilized in any alignment perfectly fine. It's very vague on what it does. That any alignment can use it, which is good because Water is their their new card draw. Now their old healing, their kind of defensive stuff. So putting this in there to help also with their new card draw could be really good with Lost Lust Pond. Putting this in there to get Water buffs out in play, to then draw like 4 cards and then remove one of your buffs to heal for 3. This card is probably actually going to see a lot more play than some of the other Storm buffs. I'm going to give it like a 4. I'm going to give this a 4 because in a lot of those aggressive style decks where maybe your buffs are being your damage prevention, but also a lot of your damage. It's a lot of the stuff where you just consistently do damage with it, and then it's like, oh man, it's about to expire and it's already done its thing. Just remove it and heal for 3. It gives the buffs that have already done stuff, where they're doing nothing now but sitting on the board, an ability to get effects as they go to the graveyard for you, which is awesome. Mind you, they won't expire, so it can get around stuff that's like the Shock Fin. Put this in there to get around Shock Fin so your buffs don't technically expire. They've been removed. That's a perfect way to get around them. I think this is going to be a really good item that you're going to see probably just even run in a deck without any Water. I mean, just for the ability to heal for 3 as your buffs go out of play. I think it's a really solid, well-designed item that it's going to see play. I can guarantee you that. It's going to see play. I'm going to give it a 4-star. I think it's a really good item. All right, on to the combos, guys. Combos, here we go. Let's do this. Chain Lightning. All right, Storm and Thunder. 7 damage, increases by 4 if your last discarded card is a combo. Now, as I was saying before, it is very difficult for you to have a combo sit on the top of your discard pile and then lay this combo. I know there's one coming up, so I'm not going to, a little bit of spoilers. There is one coming up that will help this go off more often, but more often than not, this it essentially just reads deal 7 damage. Because like the dream is you have like Bug Rider out, you lay a combo, and then afterwards you lay this combo to have this deal 11 damage, increase it by 3 for Bug Rider, and this deals 14 damage, which feels really good after following up after another combo that just did like 10 or 12. So like it's a really big double back-to-back hit. But like I said, the situation to have a combo sit on top after your opponent could have removed a buff to ruin that synergy, could have done anything to ruin that synergy, make you discard a card, mill the top of your deck with all these new stuff. This is just, it's not as potent as I would like it to be. Yes, it's cheap to pay for 7 damage, but I'm looking here for other cards that run that same alignment. What they do, we have Electro Stun, which is Lightning Water. It's 7 damage, and then whenever your opponent plays a card, they have to discard a card. That's just easier to pull off and more efficient. Otherwise, it runs with Lightning Storm, which Lightning Storm is 4/4/4, which is, yes, it's a buff, but it's 1 more damage than Chain Lightning. And a lot of times it's gonna bait out buff removal where you want your other buffs to stick. So I really don't think this card is going to be seen over Lightning Storm, because give it 2 turns, Lightning Storm is going to deal 8 damage, where this one potentially only dealt 7. It's very difficult to pull off. I really like the concept they're trying to do with the whole, like, if you're their mini Astral, where if the top card is a disc or a combo, you get a really good benefit. But it's really difficult to have it be the top card is combo, because you have to wait an entire turn. And where Astro was just, if it's like a Lunar or anything like that, where you could utilize that synergy in the same turn, having to wait an entire turn to get benefit from another combo is a lot more difficult than it actually sounds. And because of that, I'm going to give this like a 1-star rating. It's probably not going to see a whole lot of play. Yes, it's like really big burst potential of 11, but more times than not, like 80-85% of the time, it's only going to be a 7 damage combo. And there's other 2-cost combos that deal 7 damage that are probably easier to pay for, easier to run. It's not going to be worth it. All right, Crackling Torrent. Water, Lightning, 2/2/2. Damage to your target, discard the top card from your target's deck. Okay. This is fairly interesting. It looks like it's a potential slightly mill archetype for Storm, which is a lot different. I'm looking right here to see if there's any Water, Lightning. I don't think there is. I think this is the first one that fits that. No, Nimbus Crash. This ties with Nimbus Crash. And Nimbus Crash is X7, damage to your target and healing. So when you compare it to that, this deals 1 less damage over an extra turn. And yes, it mills the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. Maybe that's beneficial. Maybe that's better and a lot better in more of these circumstances where your opponent is playing a combo deck and you really want to try and get one of their combos in their graveyard. But as I've also said before, combo recursion, or not combo recursion, graveyard recursion is becoming a lot more prominent in this game. Root Singer is there. Chimchu Infiltrator is there. There is Regrowth in Nature to bring combo or buffs back. There's just so much stuff to deal with your graveyard bringing stuff back that I think it's too late in the game for them to try and make discard the top card of your target's deck better than what it could have been in the past without all of this bring your discard back to your hand and all this bring it back into play. That it's almost like putting these cards from your opponent's their discard into their deck, or top card of the deck into the discard pile, could be actually nowadays more beneficial than detrimental, unless you like hit a burn card that you're really happy about, unless like you hit one of those recursion cards. But yeah, I don't think the damage is worth it compared to Nimbus Crash, because Nimbus Crash is also healing, so it's a 14-point swing in one combo buff. I'm gonna give this like a 1.5 star rating. I'm sure it's really good in draft. Milling your opponent in draft is always good because they don't have a lot of recursion, so that becomes more prominent in draft. But outside of draft, I just don't think this is ever going to have a place in Constructed because of just how much recursion is in the game right now. That with Constructed utilizing that, this is just, it's not a good buff in Constructed. In draft, it's an awesome card. Draft, it's awesome. Constructed, like 1 star. Crushing Rapids. All right, we have Water, Wind. 5 healing. Remove all buffs from all other heroes. Oh my god, guys. Are you serious? Mind you, the healing, it's 5 healing, which is completely fine. I mean, you paid 4 for Regrowth for 5 healing to get a better benefit from the buffs coming back. This one, remove all other buffs from all other heroes. Not only is it good against in multiplayer, and you just, hey, use this. I mean, you ran, a lot of people teched in Cold Snap to just remove 3 buffs. Cool. I'm seeing a lot of these new decks coming out that have more than 3 buffs. I'm seeing it have like 4, 5, maybe even 6 buffs, like a lot of buffs on the board. a lot of them, especially if you're going against another water deck where the water buffs continuously stay out there. If you're going against nature, it's going to restart a lot of its buffs. This one, just wiping the board clean, you're going to see this card run in almost all control-y style Storm decks. And if Storm does start going in that more control-y archetype where it's recursion of combos, it wants you to let the water buff stay out and all that stuff, like just a complete reset of your opponent is so good. Black Hole was almost always run because Black Hole essentially did the same thing for Astral. Obviously, that was an attack, so it had to target one person. This one not only targets that one person, but it targets everyone. So in multiplayer, it's even an amazing card. Like, it just clears the board and basically makes you the #1 target in multiplayer. So I'm really liking all these cards for multiplayer they're bringing in. I really like the aspect of it. I think this is a 5-star combo, in my opinion, with how much effect it has on the board. And it's not one of those buffs where it has to wait a few turns till it happens. It's immediate effect. It's immediate out there. It's gonna be run. I can guarantee you that. I'm gonna run this almost all the time in my Storm decks. I'm trying to think. Is there a hybrid hero that's both water and air? I'm trying to think if there is or not. I know there's some heroes out there that are just water, and putting in that air weapon to then splash in like Dust Fiend could just be worth it, and then Dust Fiend pays for this in its own way. But I mean, Crushing Rapids is going to see play. I can guarantee you that. People were running Flood for the mass spike in healing. This one is probably going to replace Flood. Mind you, less healing, but the presence on the board that it has to just clear out everything your opponent had is incredible. This is going to be an awesome one. Really, I thought Nemi was lightning. No, I thought it was lightning air. I didn't think she was water. No, she's poison, water, air. You're right. So you could even run this in a Nemi deck if you really wanted to. If you wanted to go a weird archetype with it. Yeah, poison, water, air. Yeah. So I mean, this is the buff for Nemi, which is really weird because her hero ability makes you want to play really cheap combos. So I don't think you would run it in that one, but it's going to be run in Storm. It's a good all-around Storm combo. Plain as day. Way better than Storm Conduit. 110% more better than Storm Conduit, Weber was. Dude, I love fairies. I love the fairy of the blue-black. I love that deck so much. But yeah, Crushing Rapids 5-star combo. I think it's one of the better ones, if not the best one that Storm has come out with since Tornado. All right, Electric Hail. We have 2/2/2/2. 2 lightning, 2 water. Reduce damage received by, so it's like a little barrier, but also deal 2 separate hits of 1 to your target. So this can be increased by Storm Shaman, because obviously those 2 separate damages of 1 can be increased. So it can heal like Storm Shaman rotates out and do a 5 and 5, which is just a really good spike damage, and then you can do whatever you want with your other attacks. So like that could be a really fun thing. It is like a bubble fish essentially for the next 4 corners, which is also really good. It does what lightning does and what the water support does all in one combo. So I think I think it's a really good combo. It's nothing that essentially breaks the game or really gets you off like on a full fresh restart like Crushing Rapids did. But Electric Hail is it's a lot better made combo than Storm Conduit ever was. Storm Conduit is just, the way I look at that combo is like, hey, you want to rip this card up? I shouldn't be saying that. It finds its own way into a fun meme deck, but it was never played. It was never played the way it was trying to be in the Captain Blacktail deck. I think it was Captain Blacktail. No, it was no, yeah, it was Blacktail. Where it was trying to play it in Blacktail and it just did not work. There was very little ways for that. There was other combo buffs better to be run. But this one, like, it has its own place. It has its own presence, which I really like about it. It does its own thing. Doesn't need a certain restriction. It does what it does well, and then can be amplified beyond what its own power level is. So I think it's a 4-star combo. It's fine to put into any Storm deck. It's fine to put into any mythical hero that you might find that runs those 2 colors. But I mean, it's nothing groundbreaking. It's nothing game ending. It's nothing where you immediately take the lead. It's just, hey, I have this combo out here. What are you gonna do? Let me amplify it? Sure, fun. I mean, that's how I see this card. It's a really solid combo buff. I like it. Elemental Surge. Okay, so 2 lightnings. 4/4/4/4. When you play an elemental attack or defend card, or one of your elemental buffs leaves play, deal damage to your target. This cannot be increased by effects. This is amazing. Oh my god. Okay, so it's the buff that it competes with is Overload. And Overload is 8 damage. You may discard one of your combo cards to increase this by 2 plus the discarded combo card's cost. So already that combo card is like 2 combo cards to make it actually do something really good outside of just 8 damage. This one, when you play an elemental attack or defend, this card does damage. It's not increasing the damage, it's this card also does damage. So this gets around like the Colossi artifact. It gets around stuff that's like, hey, your cards can only do like 3 damage and stuff like that, or a maximum of 3. They're doing it from 2 separate sources, so it gets around that really nicely. It gets around also like you can't be hit for more than 10 or stuff like that. So it's a really good card. Your elemental attack cards, we got Dust Fiend, we got Dust King, we got Spark Elemental, we got a lot of this other new elemental attack cards that from the old set are just really good, and having this one increase them becomes even better. And then it's when some of your elemental buffs leaves play. So like even running this in a deck that runs like, I don't know, Wild Windrunner, for some weird reason you're running a lot of elementals in a beast deck. And there's a lot of elemental just support cards out there that when they rotate out, they'll just deal 4 damage. Mind you, this buff can't be increased by effects. That's completely fine. But it's going to get a lot of value. And because it's so cheap to pay for, you're going to be able to pay for it really early and then get value out of it, out of all of your elemental attacks, defense, stuff like that. And, I mean, outside of the like Spark, Wisp, and Dust Fiend, a lot of more of the elementals are more defend cards, which will just trigger this. Like, having such a variety of triggers will make this card be run very strongly. I mean, in an elemental deck, obviously it'll do a lot better, but even outside of an elemental deck, because all of their good, strong, damaging sources cards have all been reconstructed into the elemental package, this is just a solid, good around card. I'm going to give it like a 4, even 4.5 star card. That it's going to be seen a lot in the elemental archetype, but outside of the archetype, it's actually still going to be seen quite a bit just because of that massive damage presence you can do. Because the way I'm seeing this is you lay this, and the best part about it is it's not when your buffs expire, it's when they leave play, which is what the heap was errated from. So when your opponents remove your elemental buffs, they'll take 4 damage because it left play. It wasn't expired. It wasn't, removed in a certain way. It was just, it left play. So cool, they take 4. And then on the second turn, you lay Spark Wisp and you lay Dust Fiend. Essentially, it's like having a Storm Shaman out, but the Storm Shaman isn't increasing the damage, it's dealing a separate source of damage. So it'll help you get around things like Mountain Fort. It'll help you get around like those stuff where you need to get rid of them quickly before they can utilize them. And if there's certain things that say you can't take more than 8 damage in a turn, like if someone for some reason is laying Vagard from nature, Spark Wisp deals 5, this deals 4, Dust Fiend deals 4, then this deals 4. None of them dealt more than 8, so all of the damage went through. There's so many ways to utilize this buff that I think it's a phenomenal, well-made buff that, because, like I said, all of their good cards are now elementals that have been being played consistently in all these other decks, this card is it's going to see a lot of play, and I think it's like a 4, maybe even a 4.5 star buff. But, I mean, it could even be a 5-star. It could be a 5-star buff. Just because it's one of those where once you lay it, you potentially could win the game because it lasts for 4 turns. You could just potentially overrun your opponent, overwhelm them, which is difficult to do in a lot of games where you heal and have all this defense. This could be that buff, like in Mountain that Rupture was, where you just lay it and then you have so much overwhelming potential against them that they couldn't handle it or recover from it. That this could be the game-ending buff, in which case I'm going to go to 5. I'm going to go to 5-star. It's a buff that potentially wins you the game once you lay it. Because you're not going to lay it if you have no elementals. You're going to lay it if you have at least 2 to get a lot of benefit from it. So I'm going to say it's a 5-star buff. You're going to see this a lot, if almost not in all elemental decks. Or in a lot of storm decks. Shifting Winds. Alright, we have the first combo. It's 1 of each. Awesome. I love these combos. 5, 5, 5, and 2. Corner 1, healing. Okay, starts off a little defensively. Corner 2, damage to your target. Awesome. Corner 3, draw 2 cards. That is awesome. I love the variety that this combo buff has. Obviously, it starts off more defensive, so it's not an impactful card where it's like, hey, I pay this to deal 5 damage. It's not meant to be aggressive. It's obviously you heal first, then you deal damage to your opponent, but then afterwards, you draw 2 cards. which in blue, outside of what we've seen with Therapeutic Heal and now Washless Pond and all these buffs when they expire, is just card draw. Jack of all trades, master of none. I mean, yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, if you want to look at it, it's like, hey, I'm a Spark Wisp with like a slightly weak Vitalizing Frog, and then like I don't know what draws you 2 cards in an air. I don't know what draws you 2 cards, but yeah, it essentially does like 3 action cards in one that you just pay the 3 action cards to do in this one combo. If you want to look at it that way. But because it's one of each, it pays for a lot of other combo buffs. And I'm trying to think of what are the buffs in that we currently have right now that have one of each in Storm. Stormwall. There's got to be one more. I thought there was 2. Stormwall was run almost... Oh, and Eye of the Storm, which was almost never run. So this... If you're thinking about replacing it with Stormwall, I wouldn't. In almost any way, shape, or form. Stormwall is such an efficient combo buff. You can't be attacked for 3 out of your 4 turns. It just deals damage to your opponent. Comparing it to Stormwall, it's not a good buff. Like I said, it's 3 action cards all rolled into one. Why not just lay those 3 action cards and save your buffs for a better opening slot? Yeah, I can see it being good in draft. I think it was a buff made for draft, not made for constructed. In which case, I'll give it like a 1.5 for constructed, and like a 4.5 for draft. Because in draft it pays for a lot of the other water buffs. It does what you need it to if you can lay it for your action cards without having to pay your action cards. So I think it's one of those buffs that was made for a different format than constructed. Because constructed, this is almost never going to see play compared to a lot of the other cards that you're going to see play. Next one, Storm Strike. Hey, here's the other one that I've been talking about that I've been trying to allude to without saying the name. 1 of each cost. So here we have something that competes with Shifting Winds. It's 9 damage. Move a combo card from your deck to your hand. This is nuts. This is incredibly nuts. Already it's 9 damage. Solid amount of damage. It's what Shatter Blast did for Mountain that was always running Mountain. Mind you, that was their weapon removal, so why not run it? This is 9 damage. Move a combo card from your deck to your hand. You get to fish for a specific combo card and put it in your hand the turn after you lay this, which in my mind the developers were probably thinking about running it with Chain Lightning. You would look for Chain Lightning, then next turn lay Chain Lightning to deal 11 damage. So essentially 20 damage over 2 turns. But so much could go wrong between those turns, which is why I gave Chain Lightning a bad review. This one is like, this is going to be a 5-star combo. This one I would say you run over Stormwall, especially in certain archetypes. Especially the one where you want to have all that combo recursion. Because, I mean, Storm Strike, you play Storm Strike, and then if it's like your last one, you just search for Storm Calling. Lay Storm Calling, get all your stuff back. Or if you need to remove their buffs, you look for Crushing Rapids. I'm trying to think if that's not the card. Yeah, Crushing Rapids. You search for that. If you need to like really put on the damage, you search for Tornado. It's a very versatile one where, yeah, it's 9 damage. It's an awesome damage output, but then you get to search for a combo that could be a specific combo that you teched in to beat this archetype. So having that be a really good thing to do for Storm, which loves playing combos, is just really strong. It's super strong and super versatile that in almost every Storm deck, I say you run Stormwall and this, in my opinion, because they're combos that pay for one another very easily. It pays for a lot of the other combos. And, I mean, they're both just very efficient, very good combos. That I think this is a 5-star combo because it's going to be seen in almost all Storm decks. There's no reason not to run this because it fetches you combos. It's card draw for specific card draw, which we've already determined is very good in this kind of game. And it's one of each. It's the one thing that this combo would love to do is pay for other things while fetching for other combos to do that kind of thing. So it's a very good combo. Hands down, one of the better ones that Storm has come out with. I think it's going to be one of their top 5 combos of all 3 sets. Thunder Party. Lightning, Wind, X333. Increased damage done by that. Okay. The way I'm looking at this, it's like you have Storm Shaman for the next 3 turns. Yeah, Storm Shaman is 4, and this is 333, but 1 damage bind you off with 2 action cards is 2 damage. It might not be that detrimental. Um, but with all the buffs that we've been seeing that just, or all the combos that just deal extra damage or have an impact on the board, healing, buff removal, all this stuff, and you have efficient cards like Vortex Plains, like Storm Shaman, why would you want your combo to do the same thing that your action cards are doing if the action cards are doing it well enough where you don't need a combo to do the same thing? That's kind of what I'm looking at this. I know I've said that about a lot of combos lately, and it's because a lot of combos they've been doing have been doing the same thing that a lot of their action cards they've been seeing consistently played. But yeah, this is one card that does something an action card does, and not even extremely better. Storm Shaman, at least you like line up Storm Shaman really well. If you lay this, you really only get like one good turn out of it, and then the other two are like, okay, well, I hope you draw cards, so then utilize it a little better. And it's increased damage done, so you could increase damage done to yourself too. It's not done to other heroes. And right now I'm trying to look if there's any other Lightning Wind card. I don't see one. Nope, there's Wind Lightning for Cleansing Wound, which is way better than this one. But yeah, I don't see this buff or this combo buff ever seeing play. I mean, it might be just another one that was made for drafts. Easy to play with 2 elements, and then because you're splashing into like 3 different colors in drafts, you get a lot more benefit out of the damage increase because there isn't a lot of damage increase, and you want to use those action cards for your damage. But constructed, I don't see this card being played in constructed. It's much more of a combo card for draft. So I'm gonna give it like a 1-star for constructed, 4-star for draft. I think that's fair because you're still gonna run Storm Shaman, you're still gonna run Vortex Plains, which means you don't want this one to do what your action cards are already meant to be doing. That's way too much of an increase, and you're not having the cards enough in the deck to actually get benefit from it if all your cards are increasing and none of them are actually dealing damage. That's what I'm saying. All right, we got Whirlwind, we got Wind, Water, XX Clunky Corner. So you gotta wait 2 turns before anything happens, obviously. Attack ability, move all cards from the recipient's hand to their deck. You gain 1 additional action. Oh my! That is a lot of fun. Oh man. The card I was talking about before, which was Wind Lightning's Cleansing Wind, where you got to choose an element and they put them all back in their deck. This is just, hey, if you let this sit out for 2 turns, I get 2 actions. My turn was never really hindered because of using this ability, so I still have 2 actions afterwards, but you just don't have a hand anymore. So your opponent has 2 options. They see this card come out. The first option is to A, buff removal it, or lay all their cards in their hand to make it so that when you do have the attack ability, it's not moving anything back. Or B, if they don't have buff removal, they have those options to play their cards or to draw cards, hoping they find buff removal in the next 2 turns. And if they don't, that's more cards that they drew, did nothing, and then you whirlwind and remove everything back, and they have to start all brand new, fresh. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. It's a very hate card on the more controlling archetype, so I think this is a combo that you actually want to put in your sideboard as opposed to your main deck, because if you run into a lot of aggro, they're going to have like 1 or 2 cards in their hand, and you're never going to get full effect from this. They're not going to care too much about it, especially after 2 turns. They should have been putting the aggression on and killing you. Sorry, getting a little late. But yeah, if you're playing a deck like Granite, Trianu, stuff like this, where they have a hard time, like after a while they remove certain buffs that you've been dealing damage with and doing all this other stuff, and you've been manipulating their hand with what Storm has been doing, and then you lay this when they're like 5 turns away from getting their combo off, and you're like, hey, you have no cards in your hand, have fun the next few turns. Like that is such a hate combo, and I love it. I love it so much. I think it's a 4-star combo because it's a very specific type of hate. I don't think it's a very versatile type of hate where it hates on every deck out there. I think I'm only going to see this in sideboard. I don't think it's ever going to be a main deck combo based on the other ones that you have options to for Storm. But yeah, putting Whirlwind in your sideboard to go against decks like Granite and like Triano is just going to be so much fun. And when late in the game you pull it out, because obviously you want to play it late against those control the archetypes, because if you play it too early, they'll just buff removal it and you won't matter that much. And then you won't get the full effect from it. But if you play it late, after you've baited out their buff removal, after you've done all this other stupid stuff, and then they look at it and just go, well, there's no way I'm coming back from this. Like, it's one of those moments where they almost just go, I concede. You win, because I'm going to have nothing in my hand. My board's inevitably going to be wiped by you, and you're going to overrun me in these next few turns that you've been building up to. I think this is a phenomenal combo, and it's going to see play in tournaments. I don't know if it's ever going to see play on the ladder. Because if you're also going against Mill, and you lay this and you shovel their whole hand back in, that's way more card draw they have. It's almost what they wanted to do in the first place. So I think it's a really fun sideboard, hate-specific combo, and I love those type of stuff. I love those ones that you tech in to beat certain matchups. I love those ones. Those are going to be so great. All right, guys, and that looks like it's it for Storm. I hope you enjoyed my video rating of this. I have one more order to go tomorrow for tech, so I hope you guys can tune in for that, 7 to 9. I think this is a really, really fun one to talk about it. Unfortunately, I didn't see a whole lot of Beast cards or Elemental cards, so I'm almost wondering if, like, they didn't add a whole lot new to this set, and it's relying on their remaking of the old set to amplify those two families in this new alignment of Storm. So I'll have to go back and see what all cards they changed to get a better valuation from it, because it looked like all they did was add like major support cards, a few good cards here and there, but all of them are support, which could just be because the base block of Storm and Awakening was so good, so standard, that all Storm really needed was more support cards to go along with it. It didn't need a whole lot of reworking or retooling like a lot of the other sets have been needing. So I don't know, I'll have to actually review Storm in a bigger way by going and doing the entire Storm review after all the family changes and whatnot to see what kind of decks that Storm can make. But that's my review on Storm. I hope you guys really enjoy it. If you do, if you like this content, we're hopefully next week going to actually start playing the game with the new Kindred cards, making some meme decks, making some fun decks, testing stuff out. Every day is going to be a new deck hero, new deck archetype that I'm just going to mess around with for a few hours. It's never going to be the same deck twice, and hopefully because of this so much versatility, we can have a lot of really fun and interesting deck archetypes. Be built, be found, be all this stuff. So if you like the content, give me a follow on Twitch. If you like all the videos that I've been doing, follow me on YouTube. I'll be posting all these stuff that I'm doing, hopefully highlight games on there as well. So my YouTube channel will grow at the same time my Twitch channel will grow, mostly with highlight games. I might break my videos up depending on what days in like 1 hour segments, so you can watch them while you're at work, while you're getting bored. I'll kind of try and make my internet presence grow and be more known to more people that want to follow me and more watch my content. So I hope you guys enjoy my videos that I'm making, because I enjoy making them. I enjoy talking with you about the cards. I enjoy getting all this feedback, reworking all these cards, getting discussants, feedback, and all that stuff from you guys. So I really hope you guys are enjoying what I'm doing, because I enjoy what I'm doing too. And hopefully as we grow this community, more people will know about it too. So I hope to see you out there later in the week when this app goes live. I really hope to see a lot of people coming up with brand new fun decks. And like I said, even if you want to talk about a deck with me, just shoot me a message on Twitch. Be like, hey, I came up with this new deck. You want to take a look at it? I really think you'd either have a lot of fun on it on stream. Maybe I'll even stream it if you've been having a lot of success with it. I'd love to test your deck out on stream. I think the only cards I'm actually missing from the digital game are the toy cards, and not even all the toy cards, like just like the heroes and stuff like that. So I have a very large collection to just try almost any deck. So I would love to demo your deck on stream if I don't have one built up for the day or stuff like that, or just even talk about decks. If you're running into a struggle, I'll see if I can give my opinion on it. If you value my opinion, hopefully you do. Hopefully my information for these cards have been well worth it. I really hope you guys had a fun time, once again, re-ending the stream. Enjoying the stream. I hope you had a lot of fun listening to me talk, banter with me, listen to this stuff. Follow me on YouTube, follow me on Twitch. Hopefully I can get enough followers where this Twitch stream will actually start doing a little something. But once Kindred comes out, I have a feeling it's going to boost quite a bit up. So come later this week, we'll have a lot more fun. I'll see you guys tomorrow from 7 to 9. I will post my Align video. Dude, I got to get those cards. I got to get those cards for like $4. I really do, because I want to try them out, and there's so much shards, but I mean, cheap-wise money, I might as well just buy them, right? But yeah, tomorrow we're doing the tech review. After that, I will post my Align YouTube video that I made on there to finish off the whole review stream. You guys can watch that on your own time on the YouTube video, so follow me on YouTube for that one. I'm going to be out of town this weekend, so I won't unfortunately be able to do anything this weekend. So my next stream past tomorrow will be Wednesday, and hopefully by then they haven't pushed Kindred back anymore, where we can start having some of these funds with the Kindred decks. Going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait for it. Hope you guys can't either. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow, and then after that, on to Kindred. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a nice night. Ciao.